Get ready. The worst is yet to come. So we've got tornado and severe thunderstorm warnings sort of overlapping. And regardless of what it is on a day like today, you should just treat it like it's a tornado warning. Get in this tornado safe place. Get at the lowest level, away from windows. In fact, when you look at the big board, we still have 30 minutes left on the tornado warning in Jackson County, 16 minutes left on the one in Orange County. We say it all the time, but the best place is to get in the basement if you have one, or a storm shelter. If you don't have that, that's okay. Just get to the lowest level and make sure you're away from windows. Often that's an interior room or a hallway. Could be under a set of steps, could be a bathroom, could be a closet, could be wherever. You just don't want to put yourself on the outside where there are windows. Make sure you're in the interior. That is the safest place to be when we have weather like today. Obviously, we have the warnings. You've seen the severe thunderstorm warnings as well as the tornado warnings. The tornado watch is in place until 11 o'clock. There is a very large amount of moisture in the atmosphere. We measure that by dew point temperature. Anytime we're in the 70s, it's muggy. Upper 70s, just oppressive. Look at these dew points today. Wow. We're feeding off of low, mid, and upper 70s. Factor in the heat. We've got temperatures near 90 at the airport in Louisville, 94 in Evansville, 91 in Jasper. This is moving in. There's plenty of heat, plenty of energy to build these storms with. Shear is starting to increase as the low-level jet increases. Wind speeds, 24 miles an hour at the point that we're measuring it at in Paoli, 28 in Jasper. Again, you can just see the atmosphere is ripe for what we're looking at. Plenty of sunshine today after we saw that morning rain. We're seeing a few clouds from the storms that are now billowing up across Indiana moving in. Would beg the question, will this help our severe weather chances here in Louisville? At this point, not really, because the storms are close enough and they're sort of feeding on the energy that they have. And unless they, again, cold pool out, meaning they develop a line that would just bring in a large area of rain, then we just sort of switch modes in severe weather. Instead of being isolated supercells with a tornado threat, it'd be a wall of wind that moves in. So regardless, we're going to see some strong storms, it looks like, move into the Louisville area. We're probably still about an hour away from that. Closest warning we have, the tornado warning, Orange County. Back to the radar views we go. I'm going to zoom in, take off the lightning, take off the warning. We're going to zoom into the zones that are most impacted at this point. So we've gone over a lot of things. We've given you street level information. We've told you where to go if you're in the warning. We explained why we're having the storms today based on the ingredients at play. And now we're going to zoom into each of these zones across our southern Indiana communities. The tornado warning is still in place for Paoli, French Lick, and you can see sort of the inflow to that storm. What appears to be a little bit of a hook on that echo right there. The rest of the storm saying, hey, it's a severe thunderstorm warning. You've got to pay attention. You're going to want to be in your tornado safe place. When we look at the velocity on this, let me just point out that we still have that rotation. We still have very powerful winds. So it doesn't matter if it's spinning or if it's just a blast of wind, it can cause damage and likely will. So it's moving just south. The strongest winds just south of French Lick, just south of Paoli, not too far from Patoka Lake, but just off to the north of that. Ethel would be next in line, moving towards southeast as it approaches the southern and southeastern part of Orange County. Very strong winds. We're talking pocket of 60, 70 miles an hour wind, possibly down to the ground, that could produce some damage. Regardless if it's rotating or not, still could cause some major problems. When we look, that's the velocity. When we go back to the radar view, let's select it there. And then let's look at the hail potential, because this storm likewise has hail with it, and it is displaced from where we would see the strongest wind. It's usually on the northern side of that, and we can sort of see that. So the largest hail is going to be closer to Paoli. And let's just look at that. As we grab our hail scope here, we'll look inside. And again, I'm just going to expand it out and move it over. So you see French Lick, Paoli would have been in the zone of the largest hail. All right. The strongest winds just south of that. That's, again, the multiple modes of severe weather that we're watching with this system as it continues to move through parts of southern Indiana. Let's go back, and I'm going to drag the radar down so we can see the storms north. Again, the tornado warning continues for western Orange County, including French Lick, Paoli, and areas along and south of 150, with a severe thunderstorm warning encompassing the rest of the area. We go back up into Lawrence County. Much of that area is sort of easing back a bit. We had that rotation, large hail. It's a severe thunderstorm warning. The bulk of that is past Bedford and passing Mitchell now. We'll be moving past Buda with heavy rain. We also look at Jackson County. So now we're up into the northern part of our viewing area. You see Freetown. We've got Brownstown, Medora, Seymour, severe thunderstorm warning. But the tornado warning is for the western parts of Jackson County, Indiana. This storm likewise still shows a little bit of that notch in the hook, the wind on the inflow. Hail would be right on the county border, heavy rain south of that, and some very strong winds. So let's look at that. Let's look at the velocity. Let's see where we have the strongest winds, and it's moving right toward Freetown. I know a lot of folks in the area, both in Kentucky and Indiana, are dealing with their fairs going on. New tornado warning coming out. We just see that popping on the screen, so we've got that. This one's going to come out for Jackson County. So it's going to be for the rest of what we were just talking about. We were looking at that rotation. This is for Jackson County. This goes, again, radar indicated until 5:45. That's the new tornado warning that's out. All of Jackson County. So you heard me just mention, all right, Seymour is not in the warning. Well, now you are. They just extended that warning as we were taking a closer look at what was going on. We see the rotation over the Freetown area, radar indicated, but several of these storms today have been sighted or observed. This one, radar indicated for now. Pretty rural area of Indiana, northern and northwestern parts of Jackson County. Freetown, again, tornado safe place. You've got to get there. Brownstown, you should be there. This storm is going to cross Indiana or US 50 as it moves closer to the Seymour area within the next probably 15 minutes. So all of these storms are moving at about 35 to 40 miles per hour. Again, that is the storm with the latest warning. I'm going to go back, put on the radar, and take you to the home view. And you're going to see the warnings that we've just been talking about. We're tracking 2 tornado warnings. Really, there's 3 because there's 2 in Jackson County, but for all intents and purposes, really 2 counties that are really seeing the brunt of the weather, and that's Orange County as well as Jackson County. You are the 2 with the tornado warnings. Washington County also seeing severe weather. Severe thunderstorm warning as that Orange County storm moves into your area. Let's go over to Jessica. Have we seen any reports of damage or large hail being reported, Jess?
We did just a few moments ago get a photo near Paoli, Indiana, of what looked like golf ball sized hail. So that it was very spiky, which usually indicates, yeah, this is some pretty big hail that's being lofted up into the air. That was a few moments ago. That's what the storm that's currently moving through Orange County. But what I was noticing with this one in Jackson County, as I was looking at the last couple of radar scans, it looks like there's, almost 2 separate areas of rotation. And then, they were a lot weaker, but now, especially near Freetown, it looks like it's tightening up a bit. So that's an area where we really want to be watching closely over the next couple of radar scans. That's going to be near Freetown, Pershing, Surprise, Spraytown. All of these little areas, you want to make sure that you are in your tornado safe place. That's what we've been saying, at the lowest level of a building, just because with each and every radar scan, we're starting to see these kind of tighten up, and that means the rotation is turning tighter, and that's where we have a better potential of seeing a possible tornado. So that does include pretty much all the rest of Jackson County in Indiana. Seymour, if you are hearing the sirens, if you got the notification on your phone that there is a tornado warning in place, that is the case, but the rotation itself is still pretty far off to your west.
All right, Jessica, thank you. We continue to track where we have the tornado warnings, where we have severe thunderstorm warnings, seeing those line up back across southwest Indiana, western Kentucky. This line will try to develop sort of solidly and move in. In the meantime, until it becomes a solid line, we have to deal with individual supercells along that line, and those are the ones that are now rotating In fact, as soon as they form, they rotate because of the conditions of the atmosphere. And that's why we have a number of tornado warnings across southern Indiana. So our warnings that we have in place, you can see them from the big board. The tornado warning for Jackson County is the latest warning. We have that for 36 more minutes. We also have severe thunderstorm warnings for parts of Crawford, Harrison, Orange, Washington counties. That goes for another 21 minutes. And then the other warnings will be allowed to expire shortly, including the warning for Orange County. We've talked about the lightning with these storms, the hail with these storms. Obviously, the most concerning is the wind and the potential for the rotation with these storms, which is why the Weather Service is going with not only a tornado watch, but a tornado warning for several of the storms that have developed. I take the lightning off just to reduce that clutter. We're seeing some reports of wind and hail that are just now coming in. The main ones of the damage have been coming out of the Indianapolis area. So we've had no reports out of Lawrence County, out of Orange County, even out of Jackson County, at least at this point. So our warnings continue. I'm going to zoom in, and in fact, let me put the radar in motion. This gives you an idea of how fast these storms are blasting in, moving at about 40 miles an hour on their forward speed. They're coming in from the north and west. Their main movement is to the east, but they are moving to the south as well. So you can track that right into the Louisville area. We're watching what's happening here in Paoli. Follow my hand. That would take it right down into Metro Louisville. We're probably about a half hour or so away from that arriving. We're already starting to see the clouds develop. Jessica's going to turn those SkyTrack cameras that we have to the north. We have cameras in parts of Indiana. In fact, in Corridon, we're going to be able to see the base of this storm as it moves through. Out of Huber's Orchard and Winery, we'll be able to see those storms as they approach, and they will be there shortly, and then arriving into parts of northern Kentucky thereafter. The concerning part of what's happening today is that as the next couple of hours, we're at 5 o'clock now, by the time we hit the hours just before sunset, that low-level jet increases. That gives us enhanced sort of shear in the atmosphere. That allows those storms to continue to develop. So the severe threat won't go away until probably a couple hours after sunset. Technically, this watch is in place until 11 o'clock. This is the main show, what you see on the map, but it's going to take some time to move across our entire viewing area, which is why it's going to be sort of a lengthy process, especially if the shear kicks in enough to see these storms take off and we get other warnings. Just note that if you get under a severe thunderstorm warning or tornado warning today, take it seriously. Get in your tornado safe place. This is one of those days. Some days aren't as outrageous as this one may be or is in terms of looking at atmospheric conditions. All right, I'm going to go back to the radar. I'm going to stop the loop, and then let's just zoom in, and I'll point out a couple of features on the rotation. You saw Jessica show that in time and that it was increasing or tightening up. So we want to look at both of these storms. I'm going to zoom into both. I'll put the velocity back on, and we'll sort of just walk through that. Tornado warning, severe thunderstorm warning. That tornado warning is about to expire for parts of Orange County. And the good news is it's still a severe thunderstorm warning. We've noted that that has not been extended as a tornado warning, regardless of the fact that I just said treat them all the same today. The good news is there is a little bit less rotation showing up. Up around Freetown is where we've had the greatest rotation. Back to our velocity we go, and you're going to be able to see, I think I'm going to zoom into both of these pockets. You can see one to the south, one to the north. Let me just zoom in so we can see. And the reason I'm going to do that, sometimes it's easy to keep both on the screen, but the reason I'm going to do this is because as I go farther north, I'm going to kick over to Indianapolis's radar. It's a little bit closer. That gives us a better view of this storm. And you can see, again, the rotation, sort of the anomaly going toward and away from that radar across Jackson County, Freetown, in the pocket of strong wind, moving through Kurtz as you work your way through Spraytown, Surprise, moving right along not too far from US 50, just north of that, and it will cross US 50 as it moves past Shields in the coming minutes. All right, so that's one zone we're watching. I'm going to just put that into motion, and this will be over the last couple of hours here as you watch the development of that. It moves in, and you can see it's just sliding right to the south and east. That's going to take it right towards Surprise, Shields, and Cortland. That would be the areas next of impact with some of that strong wind. Let me pause that, and I'll just stop the motion. And a new severe thunderstorm warning is coming out. This again, severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings today have been being issued by the weather services out of Indianapolis and out of Louisville. This latest warning comes across Crawford and Du Bois counties. And this is radar indicated. Again, it's severe thunderstorm, but winds 60 miles an hour, 1-inch hail possible. I'm going to go back to our radar. Let me put it back to our home view, first with the radar and then our home view. And you'll see that warning coming out, getting closer and closer to the city of Louisville as we watch these storms approach. So the latest warning coming out for parts of Crawford County, areas back along 64, so right along the interstate. That's the latest warning coming out. These storms likewise moving off to the east with a slight jog to the south. Those are a little bit distance away, and they will eventually push closer to us. So when we're looking at that, you can see that that's just a bit away from us. I'm going to go to the reports tab here. Let's see if we have any of the reports coming in. You can see a couple of trees down, funnel cloud, large hail reported out of several of those storms that have been moving in. Even out of Orange County, we had some large hail reports. When we look at the imping data, this is data that you as viewers can tap into. And I'm just going to look to see if we have any of that hail being reported. Couple of reports, and you can see dime-size hail, quarter-size hail there, pea-size hail moving very close to the area. So very good information when we can get that real-time information coming in. That is super helpful. We're, again, just looking at some of the data that we have. Let me go back to the radar view. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to zoom in to the quadrants where we have the tornado warning. There's only one left now. The one out of Orange County expired. So now we have Jackson County. This includes Seymour. This includes Freetown. This includes Spraytown. This includes that area that we've been watching with the threat of the tornado. Just radar indicated at this point. But when we look at that velocity, again, we see that pocket of rotation. And you see the warning sort of being readjusted to include Freetown, Brownstown, right along US 50, Seymour, Crothersville, Uniontown, and Tampico. All right, so that is the zone we're watching. Jess, what do you have?
Looks like the tornado warning for Orange County and Indiana has just expired, and we're working on getting our SkyTrack camera facing the storms. This one, you can actually see it from downtown Louisville. This is from our downtown Louisville SkyTrack camera from Park Place, but we've just gotten several Facebook photos in, and I was working on getting those up on air so we could show them. Large hail out of French Lick, Indiana, all across that area. We'll be getting several of your all's reports, and we very, very much appreciate those. Some very large hail has been reported there. It looks like it's almost tennis ball size hail from what I can see in these photos that you guys have sent in. And you can do that. It's very easy to do that in the Wave Weather app. I would highly suggest doing it if you could do it safely. Of course, we don't want you guys to go out inside or outside of the thunderstorm and put yourself in harm's way by any means. But we are starting to see these showers and storms come closer and closer to places like the Louisville Metro. And we're going to continue to keep a close eye on the cameras too to see what all we can see, Kevin.
All right, a lot of lightning is what we're going to be seeing, especially as the darkness of those clouds moves in. That'll provide a nice backdrop to see the lightning. There's a lot of that with all of these storms that are moving toward the area. We also have noted that hail in some of these storms. Let me go back to our home view. The only tornado warning we're currently tracking is the one across Jackson County. That includes those areas we just mentioned. Other severe thunderstorm warnings are lined up as well, even more sort of popping across far western Kentucky. We're on the velocity view there. Let me go and let me just point out the radar, and I'm going to put it into motion. Sometimes it's good to see it on a wide view. And as we push play, you can see those storms developing as they move in. They pulsed up. We saw the rotation develop. You can see that even by looking at the reflectivity, that they are not as singular. They aren't those individual supercells as they were when they first developed. So we're sort of seeing those congeal just a bit. That'll be good news in terms of tornadoes if that continues to happen. But what we would likely see is that some of this would congeal together in sort of a line or a Boeing segment. That would be a wind maker, more so than a tornado maker. But the storms to the south are still individualized, still supercells, and each of those would have the potential to spin. So that's sort of the scenario that we're watching at this point. That's what we're looking at in terms of severe thunderstorm warnings versus tornado warnings that we have across the area. Again, it's a tornado warning, Jackson County. When we look at Brown County, we have hail that's come in, size of pennies. That's small compared to some of the hail sizes we've seen today, but nonetheless, a report that's helpful for us when we look and analyze the data that we have on the radar. I'm going to pause the radar in terms of what we have in motion because it is moving closer to us. Places like Clark County, Floyd County, northern Harrison County, eventually western parts of Crawford County, you should be on standby for these impending storms to move your way. They're going to move in. They all have the potential for that hail. They also have the potential for the rotation, especially as we start to increase that low-level jet that I've been talking about. Because once that happens, we're adding wind energy to the atmosphere. That's just another piece of energy that we wish we didn't have on a day like today. We've got the heat, we've got the moisture, high dew points, we've got the sort of shear in the atmosphere, and that's getting ready to get cranked up even more. When we zoom in, I'll include Louisville in this so we can see all of southern Indiana, Louisville right down here at the bottom of the screen. You can see the only tornado warning is our northernmost county, Jackson. We have sort of trimming back the severe thunderstorm warning past Paoli at this point, but now it encompasses and continues to encompass a good chunk of southern Washington, northern Harrison counties. That includes Palmyra with that storm. I'm going to go back to the tornado warning to the north as we analyze what's happening across parts of Jackson County. We're looking at some of the hail reports coming in. So many of these are as you work your way toward Indianapolis, some of those out 64 as well, pushing across parts of, really zoom that one in. Let me see if I can zoom it out. Here's just while we're here, you can see it is going to cross over US 50, mainly a little further south. Let me see if I can zoom out on this. All we've got now, we're going in. Back to the home view. Sorry about the mispunch on the buttons here, but let's go back. And now let me zoom back in. I want to get that warning, but not everything else. There it is. So we'll zoom back into Jackson County. All of that county, for the most part, under the tornado warning. A little less structure showing up in terms of what it would look like if we were just looking at the velocity. And let me just put the velocity on. And we'll go back inside this storm as it moves closer between Brownstown and Seymour. That's where we have the strongest winds. You can see that pocket of wind about to cross over US 50. So that's where we have the greatest wind coming in. Brian Good's here as well. Brian, I'll kick it over to you and see if you have any new information. Or maybe.
Sorry. Make sure my mic's on.
There you go.
Got me? Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, just not. Okay, it's not on yet. Okay. Sorry, Kevin. I just now got it set up. There we go. No, the only thing that I've been listening to you guys throughout much of the day, a lot of the interesting tags we've been seeing on this has been destructive. They've been using that as a descriptor because they hail more than anything, and certainly when it comes to the strong winds. Here in Louisville, very eerie scene at the moment. I was trying to get one of the Skytrax to come up in downtown. Let me see if I can punch up at least into... Let's see, this is from downtown Louisville. We have what we call these mammatus clouds that are over the city right now. They are usually a good sign or a bad sign of a very turbulent setup in the atmosphere right now that is over wave country. So they look like little bags in the clouds. I'm not sure if we're able to punch these up. I'll see if I can punch up on the camera on this side. This is not a sign that severe weather is happening immediately in the Louisville area, but it tells us that certainly a lot of turbulence in these thunderstorms. And look at the view from the city of Louisville. You can certainly see the structure of the cell. That's what's leading to the very well organized setup, strong updrafts. The air is certainly rising rapidly right now across the area. A lot of questions right now as these storms evolve right into the Louisville metro. How will they progress? Well, the couple things to note here that I've been noticing is that one of the signs that really stood out on some of the short range models that I've noticed is it really is aiming on the corridor across I-71 as you get into, say, around the Louisville area, all the way up 71 into Carrollton. That's a spot where they really try to enhance as they cross the Ohio River. In fact, there are a lot of storm chasers right now. I've noticed they're also located in that area right now into wave country. Here's that latest warning, just not kicking in. This is going to be for Crawford, Harrison, and Washington County, just a little bit more of an extension to the south here of that cell. This cell is the one that we've been watching. This is out until 5:30 Eastern time. The tag on that one is considered considerable, mainly because, again, the large hail and the strong winds. And, of course, you've got the potential for an isolated tornado that could easily develop out of that. This is the one we're going to be watching. Going back just a few moments in time, you can see how that has moved across Paoli and has maintained its structure, becoming a little more of a right turner, Kevin, as it gets into Harrison County. A good sign that it's got such a strong updraft. That's natural to see that. They tend to go to the right when they get very well organized. So for those even in Corden, even though you seem like you're pretty far to the south right now, you need to be weather aware. This thing could easily turn a little more to the southeast and impact I-64 between Crandall, Corden, and certainly up to about western Floyd County.
Yeah, all of these storms, again, mean business, as we've pointed out throughout the afternoon. We're not only watching the rotation, new warnings coming out here. They're going to come with tags that are either considerable or destructive when we look at the actual warnings. Again, and there's one, considerable. This is for Crawford, Floyd, Harrison, and Washington. As we track these storms closer to the metro area, alarms will be going off. The tornado warning is to our north. But again, as we pointed out all day today, even these severe thunderstorm warnings have the capability of producing very large hail. 1.75-inch hail is golf ball size hail. We're already seeing larger than that. This would produce. We
got baseball. I don't know if we reported that in French Lick.
No. So
okay, baseball size hail now confirmed.
Okay.
At 5:24 p.m.
New report just coming in, and that's now 5:24. So we're just getting some of those reports as that storm moved across parts of western Orange County. That's the same storm that we're tracking, baseball size hail. That can cause some major problems. So while it may not affect everybody, even the small locations that it hits would have the potential. As we were tracking that, remember we said the largest hail would likely be in French Lick and Paoli. The strongest winds would be just south of that. Let me take a closer look at this storm. We'll do the same. We've adjusted to the north just because we broke away. This is the tornado warning. You can see it flashing. That's just an indicator that the Weather Service is saying, hey, we're going to continue the tornado warning for Jackson County. This still includes Brownstown, US 50, Seymour, still in the path of this storm as it continues to move off to the east at about 35 miles an hour. I'm going to go back to the home view. As these storms start to approach Metro Louisville, it's important for us to get a handle on what kind of weather's coming our way. It's likely going to be some strong winds and hail for some folks, so be prepared. If your car is outside, you can put it in the garage or under a carport or under something sturdy. Might be a good time to do that. A few places could see some large hail. It's going to happen. We've already seen it happen. As we zoom in, again, all of the warnings are just now sort of converging in closer to the viewing area and into the city, and that's what we expected to happen. So I'm going to zoom in. You can see the tornado warning to the north, severe thunderstorm warning. This, as we take a closer look at this storm, I'm going to look at the two things we've been looking at consistently today. Obviously, we have the reflectivity. We can still see, again, the structure of that storm. But let's take a look and see if we have any rotation with that by just looking at the pure velocity from the radar. We're seeing tightening there. Wouldn't be surprised to see this storm go tornadic, with the wind pocket moving across Whiskey Run. That's in extreme northern and northeastern parts of Crawford County. We'll be moving over into northern Harrison County, Fairdale, Crandall. We have a camera in Corden. We'll be able to capture what this storm looks like as it approaches. Let me point out, I'm going to lift this storm up so we can also look at the hail. And just go to the pan feature. There it is. Lift it up. Strong rotation here starting to show up. If that continues to tighten, we may very well see that go tornado warning. So that's why we've said today, regardless if it's severe or tornado warnings that you have, treat them all the same. Treat them as it would be if it were a tornado warning, seeking the lowest level because of the hail and the wind potential with these storms today. I'm going to go back to the reflectivity on the radar, and then I'm going to put on our hail scope, and let's just see if we have much in the way of hail with these storms. If you have the Wave Weather app, Jessica's sending out push alerts to those out ahead of these storms to say, hey, they're on the way. We're not going to escape them. They may or may not bring damaging weather to your backyard, but you should be prepared. All right. Again, let's take a look and see if we have much hail with this storm. A little bit showing up, again, north of Whiskey Run. What we see is that the hail's on the northern side. The strong strongest wind couplet, or if there were to be a tornado, would be on that southern side, very much close to Whiskey Run. So it matches up nicely. Again, wouldn't be surprised to see that storm upgraded. Brian, would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, that's been the trend on that one for the past few moments, into the south and east, right on the other side there of Whiskey Run. I'm just looking at some of the heights, too, on some of these storms, kind of gauge on the hail potential, too, as these are moving through at the moment. And that one to the right is still there. That is into Harrison County. This one's northern Harrison County, coming in at, hold on one second, let me get the warnings off. At the moment, that one's coming in northern Harrison, not as tall as the one that's in Orange County, but still it's 50,000 feet up. Usually you get severe at about 40 to 45,000, so we're past that mark, well past the mark. And the one here into Paoli at the moment, or just west of Paoli, I should say, into Orange County, is coming in at 54,000 feet. So this large hail doesn't always mean a tornado, but it is a good sign that there is certainly perfect organization for the updraft, where you can get a tornado drop down and this kind of setup there. But we haven't had anything confirmed on that. So I know that's been the big talk. I think certainly the bigger talk is going to be the hail setup so far from what we're able to pick up, because that's what we've been able to confirm so far, Kevin, has been that baseball size hail, which again, that will do damage to a lot of things as it moves through. The temperatures,
and that was in French Lick.
That was in French Lick, right. So that's a cell that's two different ones. And we've talked about this a couple times today, where you get these cells, supercells, close together. They like to compete for one another for space and energy. So when you get several in a row, the benefit there for us is hopefully we can get these to merge and get out of the tornado threat, but you still end up with a hail threat for the next, I would say, hour to 90 minutes. But you then evolve into the straight line destructive wind scenario, which is likely going to be a scenario as they cross the Ohio River. But for the next 60 minutes, maybe up to 90, that's still when they're individualized, still trying to get their kick going as far as producing large hail and certainly some blinding rainfall. There was a lot of traffic, Kevin, and when I was coming into the station, just a heads up, if you have any evening plans, go ahead and get to your spot where you need to go for the evening. I would not be driving out in this mess, even in Louisville. Just don't even venture out in, because not only would you have to deal with the strong winds, the heavy rainfall, but obviously the hail that could be hitting the area as well. We're 89 degrees right now into Louisville. You see some spots into the 90s. My other concern, too, is looking to the west with these cells across west central areas of Indiana. As you head into Jasper, how that, again, is just the way these are trending. And I know you're talking about Whiskey Run here, Kevin, but the way these are trending here, heading more to the east, that is just going to prolong the severe threat, especially right there across the I-64 corridor. Look at Evansville. Evansville is 98, 98 degrees. I'm sure it has to be up there close to a record for them today.
Yeah, that's just wild.
Yeah.
Again, high dew points. We're in the mid to upper 70s on the dew points. The temperatures not far from 100 in some places. We're dealing with an atmosphere that's primed for severe weather. We're increasing now the shear with that low-level jet ramping up. That happens at this time of day every day, so that's not something all that abnormal. And then we have an area of a disturbance, we'll just say, moving across, and that's going to enhance the lift. And that really is sort of the key feature in terms of what's spawning these storms and the potential with all those ingredients in place for them to become severe and tornadic. Regardless if they're tornadic or not, the winds are going to be a problem for some folks. When we look at the big board, these are our current warnings. We still have 13 minutes left on the tornado warning for Jackson County. Additional severe thunderstorm warnings across Crawford, Orange, Floyd, Harrison, and Washington counties. Those are places that we've been keeping a close eye on. We've said all along today that if you go under a warning, whether that's a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm warning on a day like today, to put the tornado plan in. That means the lowest level away from windows. It's an interior place. It's a bathroom under the stairs, could be a hallway. Doesn't matter where. Just remember lowest level in the center. We have the tornado watch. That's everybody in that until 11 o'clock tonight. Obviously, some places will be expired out of that watch before 11 o'clock. You can see these dew points that we talked about. 73 degrees on the dew point. That's Louisville. 80 degrees in Tell City. Wild. This is very juicy air. Another another piece of energy needed. When you look at the temperatures, Evansville down to 91. We've got 90 degrees in Jasper, 89 Louisville. Most places are in the 80s. Rain-cooled air, Bedford at 74. When you look at wind gust, Evansville had a wind gust within the last few minutes at 46 miles an hour. That was just at one particular place, likely seeing higher wind gusts in others. You can see those storms as they approach. This is our Corridon camera. Again, the base of that storm you can see, and it's not too far from that camera as we look off to the north. Lots of lightning with all of those storms. The tornado warning continues for Jackson County again until 5:45. So we've got about another 10 minutes on that warning as these storms get so close to Metro Louisville, moving into high population zones across Floyd, Clark, Harrison counties, and then eventually, of course, into the Jefferson County area themselves. I'm going to zoom in to several of the storms back out to the west. Remember, we said eventually it would take over and become sort of a Boeing segment, a line of just wind and rain. And that's going to happen eventually as this moves off to the east. In the meantime, just note the clusters of lightning. Those are individual supercells that all are spinning. They have that potential because of the shear in the atmosphere, and they're doing it. And regardless if they produce a tornado or not, they have that ability to, and they have the ability to push out some very strong winds. So we've seen that time and again. Because of the shear, it keeps the ice pellets suspended in the atmosphere a little longer too, and those updrafts, downdrafts, updrafts goes back up and down. That's also the reason we can get very large hail out of these storms. So it's the life cycle of these storms that we've been watching. Let's zoom in. We'll go back to the north, and then we'll work our way down closer to Louisville. The tornado warning continues for northern parts of our viewing area. This is Jackson County. You can see where we would see the hail. It would be now crossing over I-65 just north of Seymour. If we look at the the velocity, we have the reflectivity on. Let's go to the velocity. And you can see that, again, that is right over Seymour, and you can see the new tornado warning coming out. So we go right to it, and boom, the new warning comes out because you can clearly see that rotation moving right through the Seymour, New Farmington, Chestnut Ridge, that general zone right there over New Farmington and Seymour. You can clearly see where we have that rotation showing up. Again, with the hail on the northern edge of that, now that warning encompasses Jackson and much of Jennings County south of North Vernon. So that would be the Hayden area. Let me zoom into that so we can name a few places, and then I'll ask Brian to sort of track that across that same zone. But let me just zoom into Jennings County. We're putting you on standby here. If you're looking areas along and south of US 50, Kaminsky moving down toward Indiana 250. So bounded by US 50 and Indiana 250, that would be the area to watch. Again, rotation tightening up, the tornado warning expanded now to include Jennings County. Brian?
All right, let's talk about some of those communities. Let me kind of go through the next 45 minutes. Depends if it holds on to that southeast track, or east-southeast, I should say, on the track there. That will put it in North Vernon at about 48 minutes now. So about 10 minutes is your heads up on that. It likely will graze in the southern end of town. Otherwise, that'd be around DuPont at about 58, and Cross Plains coming up at 6:19. Also, keep an eye on the cell. This is a big heads up for Louisville. For downtown Louisville, PRP, Valley Station, Floyd's Knobs, New Albany. A heads up, this cell is going to be tracking to this section here of the metro within the hour. Right now, hail is the primary threat, but just a big heads up if you are in that area to be certainly paying extra attention to the setup as we have the next few moments. And we'll be keeping an eye on this cell that's heading due east, kind of an odd direction as the flow changes a bit. In fact, Kevin, I just was looking at this is one of our high-res models, and it shows the initial cells fairly well, but notice what happens as they move into the metro here between now and say 7:30, the line reorganizes right over the metro at about 9 o'clock. And notice it's a little more east-west. So now we're talking about only severe wind and destructive wind potential, but flash flooding really begins to go up on the scale with that kind of a horizontal look. And that will then lead to central Kentucky's turn. So you guys in central Kentucky, it may take another 2 to 3 hours before you see the storms move into your area. And then eventually they will sink to the south after, say, 11 o'clock or midnight. But for the next couple of hours, you can see it's individual cells along and north of the river, and then more of a straight line wind, flash flooding threat. And you can still get an isolated tornado on that setup too once we get past, say, about 7 or 8 o'clock this evening, Kevin, heading to central Kentucky. So the high-res modeling is doing a really good job right now of getting a good handle on how these cells are evolving. It's not going to get it exactly right, but at least you have an idea of a snapshot of what it's looking like.
And you have to think some of those areas earlier this morning had 2-3 inches of rain. So that repetitive rain, or training rain, we call it, could pose problems in terms of flooding. Not only do you get it all at once, which yields flash flooding, but some areas have already had a saturated ground from this morning's rainfall. So keep that in mind, too. Again, you can see what Brian pointed out in terms of the warnings and the lightning sort of bundles that we have on the radar. Those are the individual cells. All of those are severe warned. Some of those have been tornado warned. They all have potential to produce large hail and damaging or destructive winds. Each one of the severe thunderstorm warnings. So they're not all rotating to the sort of specs that would be needed to issue tornado warnings, but the fact is they could at any point. And we've seen time and again today where we've had started out with a severe thunderstorm warning and then boom, it went into a tornado warning. Many of the warnings likewise also come with a tag that says, hey, tornado possible. Let me show you that. I'll just move the radar up and you'll be able to see radar indicated on the severe thunderstorm warning. That's Hopkins County, Webster County. You can see some of those in parts of Indiana. We're back to that tornado warning. I'm trying to cover that. There we go. So again, you can see for Crawford, Floyd, Harrison, and Washington comes with the tag tornado possible, considerable damage, winds to 60 miles an hour, hail larger than golf balls. And we have noted that. We have baseball size hail coming out of the French Lick, Indiana area. If you know that area, you know what we're talking about. Back to our home view, and then we'll zoom in. We continue severe thunderstorm warnings across the area. We also continue this tornado warning until 6:15. So I'm going to zoom back into that zone. This is for Jennings County, and that's the one we've been talking about. I know our newsroom is also making phone calls to the emergency personnel. If we have any reports that we need to pass along, be sure that we can see those. Again, Jackson, Jennings, you are under that tornado warning till 6:15. These storms have gone through cycles. At times they look really impressive on the reflectivity, and other times not so much. Let me go back to the velocity, and we can see where the strongest winds are. Still a very strong couplet showing up just off to the east of 31.
About a gate-to-gate of about 110 right now.
Right there. So that is the zone. In fact, let's go over to Brian. You're zoomed in a little tighter than I am. So let's just talk about the places that need to be in their basement. This is tightening up pretty wickedly.
Yeah, this is just due south there of Seymour. This is right along I-65 that we're watching. I'm just keeping an eye on the reports. Okay, the reports here from, well, at least spotters right now of possible tornado that are into Jennings County. Again, these are just spotters right now. A lot of people are apparently stopping.
Do you see that at 75 at State Road 3?
I do not right now. I'm not exactly sure.
So it would be 65, I'm guessing, at State Road 3. So zoom in to that. 65 State Road 3. There's
threes over here on the eastern side of Jennings, but it may cross over at the northern parts. It's probably up in here that they were originally reporting that to the north.
I see 7.
Yeah, and there's 3 here. And there's 250. So it depends on how fast this is moving. Again, the radar beam's not going to get this exactly right, but this is roughly the spot. It's probably right in this general area now, just south and east of the Seymour area. It's probably over the county line, to be honest, as we head into Jennings at the moment. Let me show you the latest on this year. This is going to give me another scan here in just a second. Numbers not as bad as they were just a few moments ago.
So they're being reported by ham radio operators.
Let me kind of back the radar up and kind of look at this again. Yeah, it's the new scan just came in. You can see I did that quick jog there. Not as intense of a scan, but still very pronounced. But it certainly looks like it's over right there, the county line, heading just south of Hayden at the moment. So this is going to be heading right towards State Road 3. Here's State Road 3. Here's Paris Crossing. So this is the southern end here we're looking at of Jennings County. So this is tracking right into that particular spot. Let me see if I can get a little closer here to some of the communities that we're looking at. This is right.
That's such a rural area.
County Road 700, right, exactly. And let's see, there's 700 West. There's another update on the scan. Yeah, it looks like it's mostly now in the Jennings that we're looking at here. So this is, if it holds together, I mean, Kaminsky is very well going to be impacted by this, at least by some of the wind damage out of this. But right now, this is a setup that is kind of evolving in real time. We're just now seeing the reports come in to the ham radio operators. 911 is getting busy right now with calls coming in. But again, this is now looks like it's crossed I-65 and is now on the edge there of Jackson County into Jennings County. So this is a big heads up for those of you in Jefferson County, Indiana. This is going to be the northwest section here that we're talking about, Jefferson County and southeast Jennings. As long as it continues that track, and these do tend to turn a little more right, so you need to account for that. But certainly, I would say in northwest section there of Jefferson County. Jefferson's likely going to be next here, Kevin, for a tornado warning that will come out as long as this holds. It looks like it's going to.
Yeah, and that's Indiana, Jefferson,
Correct,
Indiana.
correct.
So
Thank
we're
you.
tracking, again, a very tight couplet that's showing up on the radar. You see it behind me here. This has had a report. Now, again, deciphering some of the information that's coming in from the ham radio operators, we look at a lot of data. So we're looking, obviously, at the radar data. We're looking at model data. We're looking at real-time information, because nothing's better than the ground truth in a set of eyes. So we appreciate all the reports from viewers like you and the ham radio operators that work with emergency services to try to keep everybody safe. It's still a little unclear whether this is actually on the ground or not, but we're just going to treat it as though it is. The radar shows a very strong couplet. We've had reports from one of the ham radio operators saying tornado between 65 and State Road 3. Obviously, this is 65. This is State Road 3, and that is where we would have the greatest potential. It matches up perfectly where we have the greatest rotation.
And traffic, by the way, is at a standstill in that entire section of 65. So something apparently has happened here, whether people are seeing something cross the interstate or there's debris on the interstate. But at the moment, both directions at a standstill right now in 65.
Okay,
Yeah.
So clearly the storm tracker is on its way north. We'll see what's going on there as we intercept some of these storms. Let's go back to the reflectivity. That velocity we're going to come right back to. We're not going to get away from this storm, but I do want to point out that in addition to the wind, we have the potential for large hail with this storm. This would fall just south of the Hayden area. So that's one other zone that we're watching in terms of wind, tornadoes, and hail moving across Jennings County in Indiana. That warning continues, by the way. You can see it just being redrawn from the National Weather Service. That warning will continue until 5:45, and the forward motion has slowed just a bit. It's now about 25 miles an hour. So it's been fluctuating between 25 and 35 miles an hour. Now on the lower end of that, it's 25 miles an hour, pushing off to the east and south, a little slight jog to the southeast. In general, moving east at 25 miles an hour. We've got a new tornado warning coming out. This one's going to be for Jefferson and Scott counties in Indiana. Again, same storm that we're watching. Brian pointed out that would be extended. It barely clips northern parts of Scott County, but encompasses a decent chunk of Jefferson County, Indiana, including DuPont. Again, hail to 2 inches. This is radar indicated. So again, no tag on this, as though we've been sort of watching and questioning whether there was an actual tornado on the ground or not. But that is the same storm that we've been tracking. It shows immense rotation with that. As we pan this radar view down, I'm going to put on the velocities. And in fact, I'll do that through one of our scopes instead of changing the whole deal. So let's go to the velocity scope, and then we'll look at that and the hail. All right, so let's take a closer view of the velocity. And with that, you're going to notice right there is the greatest rotation, moving very close to Hilltown. This is just passing Uniontown, just south of Hayden. This will work its way over toward Hilltown and Wakefield. That is the zone that we would watch for the greatest rotation. When we look also at the hail potential, we'll go back and select our hail scope. And in that scope, you're going to notice the greatest hail potential is going to be north of that velocity. So that's also going to be just south of Hayden, but upwards of ping pong to golf ball size hail indicated by the radar there. That's something we're watching. Let's take a look at our debris, just see if we have anything. A pretty rural area of Jennings County. Nothing that would indicate the fact that we would have something aloft in there. So some good news there. The radar, we said, can look at a lot of different things. One of those sometimes correlates to debris. Let's go to the radar view. New severe thunderstorm warning coming out. And as we go to that warning, I'll point out that this one's going to be for Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Jefferson in Kentucky. So Louisville now under a severe thunderstorm warning. And you can see that comes right down into western Louisville from downtown to Portland, Shively, PRP, Valley Station. This also comes with the tag tornado possible, 60-mile-an-hour winds, possibly considerable damage. When we look at this storm, let's recenter it, and then I want to look at the potential for wind and rotation with this. We've said time and again today that regardless if it's a severe thunderstorm or tornado warning, you should put both plans into action. Let it be a lowest level away from windows kind of day as we look inside that storm. I'm just going to pop the velocity on. Broad velocity, very strong winds approaching Corydon. Our camera there, we can show you what that looks like. Our SkyTrack view shows those winds and clouds moving in. We're going to be picking up that wind momentarily as these storms move right toward our camera view. This is the Corydon area, starting to see some of that rain push in. The wind will be picking up as those storms pass a little bit closer. Brian.
Yeah, I'm checking up some of the cameras. We're watching Corydon right now. This is a live look there into Corydon, Indiana. Let me show you the scan that we're getting out of downtown Louisville as well. This is going to be from the plaza in downtown, Waterfront Plaza in downtown Louisville, looking to the northwest. Can't really see too much at the moment because it is just so humid out there for one. That's the thing. For all you weather enthusiasts out there who love seeing storms and tracking them, you're not going to see things very well in this kind of a setup. These are going to be very much rain-wrapped kind of ordeals because it is so humid outside. So do not even try to venture out in this kind of a mess. But look, the size of this thing is an absolute monster coming into the city. Now, again, so far, we haven't anything damaging with that since it's been approaching the last, I would say, 30 minutes or so as it moves across areas of Harrison County. But it does have that considerable storm tag for the metro area as it is approaching from the north and to the west. The thing is, the environment, the city of Louisville is very unique. When we have the heat island effect, we do tend to cause a little bit of a change in the wind flow when storms do get a little closer to the river. It needs a little bit more of a southeast flow into that cell, and that cell can become rather strong rapidly. So we'll see how this plays out as it crosses over New Albany here very soon into, I would say, Shively and downtown Louisville. That's a spot to watch there for that storm heading into the metro. So for the metro, your weather radios have gone off. If you have the lens alerts, your phone just went off as well for that. We're aware of that storm. We're watching it. Obviously, right now, we're also keeping an eye on still a very pronounced rotating thunderstorm supercell that is across southern Jennings County that is heading into the northern side there of Jefferson County, Indiana. But that one, so far, Kevin, I haven't heard anything other than issues that we saw of a disruption there on I-65. We saw some reports of rotation. Ham radio operators were also reporting potential. They saw something rotating there as well. But unfortunately, as you mentioned before, this is an area where reports are quite sparse. They do tend to be quite delayed.
Yeah.
So we may get a 15-minute delay here on something that could be a little more significant. So that's why we got to treat it down the line as significant as we can. Hopefully, everyone takes precautions, and let's hope it ends up weakening.
Yeah, you don't want to rest on your laurels thinking, oh, there's no damage that's
Correct.
not on the ground, when it very well could be. Again, two areas of concentration of wind and rotation that we're watching. This one just mainly wind. There's not a lot of rotation with this. I know a lot of folks have been talking about hail. Are we going to see that very large hail? We've had baseball-size hail out of French Lick with about an hour, maybe hour and a half ago at this point. Let me put on our regular reflectivity through the radar view here. You can see what's moving into Louisville. It's a severe thunderstorm. It has the potential to produce 60-mile-an-hour winds. We're going to see that. Right now, winds are out of the south, gusting to about 10 miles an hour. When we look at our hail scope on this, I'm going to point out that there's not a ton of hail. So this is good news at this point with the storm that's moving closer to us. So we can see quarter-size hail over northern parts of Harrison County. That's going to be near Fairdale. That's Fairdale, Indiana. Crandall, just north of Corydon, pushing toward Lanesville, Georgetown. That's what's moving closer to us here in the city. Now, when we look at as far as the rain, yes, there's going to be some heavy rain. There's going to be that potential for the burst of wind to come with this as it sinks down. Not a whole lot of rotation. Going back to our home view, I'll point out where we do have the rotation, and you're going to see several storms with warnings, a number of severe thunderstorm warnings on the map that still have to move through. The one tornado warning that we have that we've been tracking is going to show the rotation the best. New severe thunderstorm warning coming out. You saw it pop on. I'll take you to it in just a second. But let me talk about this tornado warning first. And with that, you can see some of that rotation. You can even see the hook that's trying to develop as it moves into northern Jefferson County, Indiana. So it's moving from Jennings County into Jefferson County. When we look at the reflectivity, you can see the heavy rain, the possible hail. Here's the velocity. Again, flattening out just a bit, showing signs of a push of wind as opposed to a particular sort of couplet, which would mean a tornado. So this could very well just be a now turning into more of a wind maker. That's something we'll be watching for southern parts of Jennings County and Jefferson County in Indiana. When we look at the rest of Clark, Floyd, Harrison, and Washington, this likewise is now a severe thunderstorm warning. It comes with 60-mile-an-hour winds that are possible, golf ball size hail that would be possible. That includes Borden, Greenville, New Pekin, and areas that's push right down into Floyd County, just shy of New Albany. But you're already under a warning in New Albany. So it's pretty much that whole cluster of storms across southern Indiana. The one tornado warning that we still have in place goes for just a bit longer, now being extended into parts of Jefferson County, Indiana. Back to our home view we go. Again, I know a lot's going on the radar. We've got a lot of storms. They all have that potential for wind and hail. Some of those are rotating. The one that is showing the greatest rotation is the one to the north. That's the tornado warning that we've been talking about. That one's for parts of Indiana that includes Jefferson and Scott counties. Really, it's mainly Jefferson because it just clipped barely Scott County. That's in place for another 20 minutes. Other warnings that are out are just severe thunderstorm warnings. But on a day like today, as we pointed out, they all contain the potential for hail and strong winds. It just doesn't matter if it's rotating or not. In many instances, it doesn't matter. So we see the lightning with those storms. We see the intense atmospheric conditions that they have to work with. Temperatures climbing not far from 100 degrees in some places, dew points in the upper 70s to lower 80s in some places. Kind of a wild day to see these storms continue to develop, mainly wind and rain pushing into the metro area at this point. Brian?
Yeah, in fact, Kevin, I was looking at this is a close-up view of the metro. Let me show the radar view on that. Notice here, right at the point of southeast of Lanesville, look at the lightning bolts. They are not where the rain is currently falling. That's an indicator that there's a strong updraft south of the cell, which is going to likely pull and tug on the cell to develop more toward PRP and Shively. So kind of a heads up. It looks like everything's heading to your north right now, but I do think this cell is going to build a little closer to the south. The lightning is shifting that way. That usually is a good sign that that's where the trend is going to be for these cells. But this is a 1-2 punch here. We got two supercells trying to play cat and mouse with each other, and they're going to try to move right over the same exact location. So while we still have the damage and wind threat, hail threat, and even isolated tornado threat that can develop here, the amount of rainfall is going to be tremendous, absolutely tremendous here across areas of Indiana, Daisy Hill, Borden, Indiana, very close to, I would say, just west of Henryville, all the way through certainly Floyd's Knob. So this is going to be the type of blinding rainfall. This is very difficult to get around in, and it's going to certainly impact the Louisville Metro in a significant way on travel here into the junction, I-65, I-64. It is going to be an absolute mess. So if you're about to venture out, you got dinner plans, you're about to head out for the evening, and certainly within the Louisville area, Shively, PRP, I would hold off on that because, Kevin, within the next hour especially, it's going to be quite messy out there. Even though we don't have anything damaging taking place, this is still quite the significant group of cells that are moving in from the northwest.
Yeah, I mean, on a normal day, the lightning and the rain alone would be disturbing. Yeah. So we'll find that, plus we'll add in some wind and the potential for that rotation. That's still very much possible because, like we keep saying, we're just now increasing that low-level jet, Brian.
Yeah, exactly. And that wind field is ramping up. I saw, looks like what we call the wind shear ramping up to about 55 knots to 60 knots, roughly right there along the Ohio River. This is what's going to be interesting. This is where the storms begin to transition from the individual cells and begin to tilt a little more east-west in nature. We saw that. In fact, let me loop it and clear up on my drawings. Notice the cells around Tell City, how they are acting different as far as motion compared to the cells that have been moving across Indiana. There's a bit of a merging going on, and it looks like it's going to be the I-64 corridor as where we're going to have the cells that are dropping from Indiana, the new ones that are moving in from Evansville. everything's kind of coming together there for quite a bit of heavy rainfall. You get a lot of embedded large hail within that. But the good news I can say on this is we're not seeing the monster supercells that we had earlier. Even 30 minutes ago, we're starting to see these cells really start to collide with each other now that the wind flow is changing a bit. They don't have as much room to work with. So we're about to see how this will evolve, but I'm hoping that will cut down on some of the hail threat within the next hour, especially across Indiana.
Yeah, and the good news on this is it's moving into populated areas. So if we were seeing the reports of hail, we'd be getting them almost immediately. So the good news is we haven't had a whole lot of reports of A, wind damage, B, large hail. It's been mainly rain and lightning, and that's what we're seeing. Doesn't mean these storms won't tick up and would be capable of producing it, because that's certainly true, especially as it moves into that environment we've been talking about. But at this point, the main issue, lightning and wind with what's moving right into the metro area. That's not necessarily the case to the north. Now, you just noticed some of the red fading off the map. That's the National Weather Service peeling back that tornado watch. Simply means once this line or broken line of showers and thunderstorms passes your area, which will be soon for places like Seymour, Salem, Paoli, then the threat of severe weather ends. It's just going to take some time to get it past our southernmost counties. So we will be noting that this could be a prolonged severe weather potential that takes us into the evening hours. Let me zoom back to the north. We've been tracking the storm across southern Indiana, the one with the tornado warning that's now moving right across northern parts of Scott into western parts of Jefferson counties. This is the tornado warned storm that has about another 15 minutes left on it. So until about 6:15, that tornado warning remains in progress. I'm going to put on the velocity so we can see with that new update where we have the latest rotation showing up, and you can see it's in general the same place we pointed out on the reflectivity, moving right across the county line, pretty much right where they all merge from Jennings, Scott, as well as Jefferson. That's going to take it right into the Wakefield area with some of those strong winds. As we zoom in just a little bit more, I can show you a few towns that would be impacted by this. And you can see it's moving right across Paris Crossing, Wakefield, the strongest winds passing DuPont, Wirt. It's going to move just to your south, close to you. So Wirt would be in the path of that. The strongest wind should be just south. Again, southern Indiana, that's Jefferson County, tornado warning until 6:15. When we look at the reflectivity on all of this, we've got our SkyTrack cameras looking at what's going on around the downtown area. We also have the storm tracker that's out and about. I want to be able to show you some of those images that are coming in. So when we have those, let me know. We're going to go back to our home view. And with that, we have the one tornado warning for about another 15 minutes, cluster of severe thunderstorm warning, southern Indiana moving into metro Louisville, and a few individual supercells that are ongoing by themselves out across western Kentucky. And that's where we continue to see those storms that are healthy, producing decent amounts of wind in that smaller area, and even the potential for hail with those storms. The largest hail we've seen today has been baseball-sized hail. That was in Orange County near French Lick. I know Jessica Dobson's been looking over a lot of the reports that's been coming in, looking at your social media reports when it's safe to do so. If you have the Wave Weather app, it's easy to take photos on that. Jessica, I'll ask you, do we have any additional reports of damage? Jessica's using Max 3, so we can show some of the information coming in.
Yeah, so this is an image from David in French Lick, Indiana. This is one of the bigger hail sizes we've seen. I think that's probably at least close to, I think it's probably close to tennis ball maybe, or baseball size hail. But that's one of the reports we've seen so far. That's come in from David Shelby. We really appreciate your all's reports. It's very easy to submit your photos if you're able to do so safely. Really, the majority of our photos we've gotten have been either from the Mattis clouds, from the severe weather that we see under these type of scenarios, but also some golf ball size hail near Ramsey, Indiana. So we're going to continue to upload these pictures and give you guys a better view.
All right, let's jump outside. The storm tracker's on the road. I know we've got many folks wanting to know what's going to happen in Louisville. So while we're dissecting these storms moving in with wind and heavy rain into Louisville, we're also keeping an eye on that rotation that's moving across the far western parts of Jefferson County, Indiana. The tornado warning continues there for about another 10 minutes or so. Let's go to the storm tracker, and I just want to be able to show the imagery of that rain starting to pick up northern parts of Jefferson County. Again, you can see as the conditions sort of deteriorate on the roads. We've got a number of folks on the roads. It's a Sunday. We're in peak summertime. Some folks are out and about, and you can see that as we approach 22nd Street and the exit there, as you work your way around the Watterson, that a number of areas, and 64, a number of areas are seeing the rain pick up, and that includes us here in Louisville. And it's not out of the question that we'd see some hail with this. We've just had a report of pea-size hail coming out of Floyd's Knobs. Brian?
Yeah, in fact, we're tracking the hail right now that as it moves into, it looks like 3 different cells right now moving across Indiana. This is the one that had the tornado warning with it that moved across Jackson County into Jennings. Notice the hail core still showing up there, although the past couple stands not as intense with some larger hail reports. And we had the 2 cells have been moving across Orange County, sliding into Harrison County, now approaching Louisville. So you can easily see the path so far the hail has taken, but we're not seeing it as the level that we saw earlier on the scans. So pea-size makes sense only because you got to keep in mind the radar is going to have a tendency to overestimate, but it is so warm outside that a lot of the hailstones do tend to melt as they fall. So that does reduce a little bit on the size. But pea-size, I think we can all handle pea-size once it stays at that level. But at the moment, the risk anyways, that could easily build back up again in height. Right now, I just checked. It's 46,000 feet is the size here of the storm. Again, it's certainly well within its limits there to get severe weather going as it's crossing. And again, if it were to hold on to its current hail path, we saw the report there into Floyd County. So that would take it right across Shively, along the Watterson Expressway, and near the airport. In fact, I've been watching the camera feed over at Ollie International, and so far it hasn't reached there just yet. Hard to see anything because it is so humid outside. Everything just kind of gets broad brushed there in the skies. It's hard to see much at all. Of course, now you're starting to see a little bit of rain falling. I'll check that camera, Kevin, and I'll pan it down here in a second and see if there's any hail reaching the ground. Maybe hard to tell, but it's possible. There could be some small hail, at least reaching on the western side there of the airport.
Yeah, again, the only report I'm seeing out of Floyd County, but there could be many others with that smaller hail, no doubt. When we look at the map in general, it is the heavy rain, the small hail potential, the wind moving into Louisville. Our winds, again, in southeast 9 miles an hour. That's about to change as we see the outflow from these storms push our way from the north. Our temperature, likewise, will be dropping fairly fast. We're at 86 right now in Louisville. New severe thunderstorm warning coming out that will include Crawford, Floyd, and Harrison counties. The tag on this, let me point out this feature on the radar. When you see our polygons, you can see yellow and red. The red's obviously tornado. The yellow's obviously severe thunderstorm warning. But when you see it outlined in black, that's an indicator that there is a tornado possible with that storm. So when I click on this, you're going to see it. All right. It's just a visual that gives us the indicator that, hey, there's a tornado possible with this storm. That's indeed what the Weather Service says. The storm moving into parts of Clark, Floyd, Harrison, and Jefferson. That includes New Albany, PRP, Valley Station. It can produce 60-mile-an-hour winds, golf ball size hail. In that warning alone, that one warning, over 166,000 individuals would be affected by this storm. That warning is going to go until 6:15. Let me move that warning or the box over, and then we'll just point out what we've been watching. Again, all of these storms have had the potential today. This is the storm we're watching here. This is the one that's going to be moving in. So while we have rain falling in Louisville, and there's a severe thunderstorm warning with that storm, this one has the capability of rotating more, and that's the one back across northern Crawford, northern Harrison counties that will be moving in. All right. We have additional warnings that continue to come out. Let's go to that one. And you're going to notice as we sort of bounce around on the maps that this one is coming in for areas that include all of Louisville. So that's now we have 3 severe thunderstorm warnings for the city of Louisville. That gets a little confusing, right? One is replacing the other that we have these storms moving through to give places like Fairdale, Valley Station, over towards St. Matthews a heads up to say, hey, severe thunderstorm moving your way. The other one that was just issued is the one that shows some signs of rotation. That's still a ways back. So it's that 1-2 punch we said we were going to have to deal with both storms moving into Louisville. We're going to have 2 individual storms moving in. Both will produce tremendous amounts of rain and lightning, and they have the capability of producing some very strong winds as well. So that's what we're dealing with in terms of Metro Louisville. The tornado warning continues to the north. We're not ignoring you to the north. The last few checks, Brian's been watching it, Jessica's watching it. So while we may be talking on the air about what's happening, this storm has shown some signs of weakening in terms of that rotation to the north. Let me show you. I'll show you the reflectivity, but here comes the velocity. On the velocity, you can see it's a little broader. It's still there. It's moving across western Jefferson County, Indiana. This is the tornado warned storm that has just a couple more minutes left on that warning. In fact, when you check the big board, mostly filled with severe thunderstorm warnings. 7 more minutes for the tornado warning in Jefferson and Scott counties in Indiana. What's moving closer to us in Louisville, a wall of rain and some wind, potentially with some small hail. A lot of lightning with these storms. Brian?
Yeah, in fact, let me do a quick count on that, on the lightning side. And I'm going to just focus just on the part there of, say, Harrison County, Floyd County, and the western side of the metro right now, coming in at about 91 strikes in the past 10 minutes. Let me show you the SkyTrack camera. I've been watching this. This is over at Ollie International. So far, I've not seen any hail. This is mainly just large raindrops. A good sign. The dew points are high. You get these large tropical-like raindrops that are smacking on your windshield. You guys have driven through that before, how difficult that can be. It's a very blinding rainfall, very difficult to travel through, but nothing as far as hail right now is falling. And I haven't seen too much of a hail core show up right now into the western side there of Jefferson County. So far, it's been mainly just very heavy rainfall, but I think that's going to be a sneaky issue that I think is going to start to show up here. We're going to probably get a flood advisory at some point out of this mess, especially out of Floyd County, and then the potential is there to get to a flash flood warning with some of the heavier rainfall. So that's just a secondary threat, but still can be a big one. And in fact, it's our biggest one that we have in wave country when it comes to threats, are flash floods. So just be aware of that as that moves in. These other cells are struggling a bit, and that's interesting. We'll wait and see whether or not these across the Ohio River will end up taking over the storyline as we enter this evening, but so far we haven't seen too much action to the west. But this is a very humid setup here across central Kentucky, relatively untouched. So right now the main focus is how do we get through the cell that's moving toward Madison, Indiana, which is starting to show signs of becoming more of a downburst wind scenario, but still a lot of concentrated lightning there. So we can't let our guard down with that as it approaches the Ohio River. And of course the multiple supercells, but it's hard to even identify anymore, Kevin. They're all really merging together rapidly into one big blob of heavy rain and lightning moving through the area.
Yeah, we've got a new warning that's coming out. This is going to be for parts of southern Indiana. This will be for Jefferson County as well as Trimble County in Kentucky. So it's downstream from that tornado warning. It's a severe thunderstorm warning. So another 4 minutes or so left on the tornado warning. And then we're left with this mess moving into metro Louisville that has the potential for some flooding rains. Here comes that warning I just mentioned. So let me go to it, and I'll just point out for our folks northern Kentucky, this is going to be the severe thunderstorm warning that extends outside of the tornado warning.
And there's no tornado tag, too, with that one.
Exactly. Yeah. So that goes to what we were saying. For folks who are like, why aren't they paying attention to the tornado warning? Well, we were watching it all along, and as it sort of weakened, our focus turned to the severe weather moving into Jefferson County, and that's what we're going to go back to here in a second. But I want to point out that even folks in Trimble County, just north of Bedford, right along the river, not too far from Carrollton, you're under the severe thunderstorm warning. Could still see some hail out of this storm, possible upwards of 2 inches. That's larger than golf ball size. That's moving just north of Wakefield at this point. We'll be crossing over US 421 shortly. That's the severe thunderstorm warning. The rest of us are noting the severe weather moving into Jefferson County. That is the largest cluster of storms that we have. I'm going to go back to the radar view, take off the lightning. Obviously, we have a lot of lightning with these storms. Doesn't take me to tell you that. You can probably hear the thunder. We're going to zoom into Louisville. We've got some very heavy rain that's moving in. We're already starting to see the rain pile up in parts of southern Indiana. That will be considerable as we note both of these storms moving right across the same path. So we've got a number of warnings that are out. One of those outlined in the black, that's the indicator for the possible tornado. So, and that's tagged on a severe thunderstorm warning when there is some rotation or the possibility thereof. So let me go into, and I'll show the scope so I can keep on what we would call the reflectivity. Let's go into the velocity. It's this zone here that shows right over Fairdale, and that's Fairdale and Harrison County. And you can see on that, we are seeing the rotation. So this is a zone that we're watching. We've got our eyes on it. We're going to see this move near Crandall, north of Corydon. This is a tornado warning that's coming out for this storm. So it's now, again, We're not the only ones watching it. The Weather Service clearly watching it too. We'll point out that that is now a tornado warning, comes right up to Metro Louisville. This is going to include Floyd, Harrison, and Jefferson. This includes Corydon, which we have a camera, St. Denis and Shively, golf ball size hail. This is radar indicated. Back to what we were looking at in terms of the velocity on this, we noticed this little hook going around. That's an indicator that we've got strong winds going in. And the scope will show us that. And let's go to it because I think we're going to start to see some hail start to develop as well. So the first storm's moving out ahead of that. We see the greatest rotation with this storm. We've been explaining that there are different types of severe thunderstorm warnings. Some come with the tags that tornadoes are possible, some don't. We also have a new severe thunderstorm warning. I'll get to that in a second. This is moving right across northern parts of Harrison County. You've got to be in your tornado safe place. Get to the lowest level, away from windows. That's the wind velocity that we have. Strong, gusty winds. You can see that we're still at 9 miles an hour, 0 gust at this point at the airport, but we're going to have some strong winds pushing into Louisville with some heavy rain. Let's go back to the other severe thunderstorm warning. This has been extended to now include Carroll County, which is we just were. So this is Jefferson and Scott counties for the tornado warning. That will be replaced with the new severe thunderstorm warning that we have. What we're watching for Louisville happens to be
Kevin.
Yes.
Sorry, I was watching the Trimark camera at Crumbs Lane.
Yes.
And at that point of 264, and I'm also seeing rotation right there. The wind picked up and the camera went out and I lost it.
Okay.
And I'm starting to see rotation very close to that area.
All right.
This is on the right at the point northwest side there of Shively. So just FYI.
Let's just zoom in. I see you've got your computer zoomed into it. I'll do the same just so folks know. So I was talking about the rotation going on in northern Harrison County. Brian is looking at what's going on over near Shively. So let's dive in. This is a beautiful part about having the whole team here working. Jessica's working on the social stuff, pushing it out, make sure all those that have our app are updated. Brian and I are looking at different storms all the time so we can keep you updated with what's happening around the area. This is that pocket Brian is looking. He was looking at a Trimark camera. It went out. Clearly, we have something going on here. The tornado warning encompasses that area. It's not necessarily for that part of the storm.
It may be just a downburst, but it could be. Yeah,
it could be just coming out of that storm as it continues. Shively would be in that zone right along the Watterson, so the Georgia Powers as you work your way north. So that is an area that we'll be watching. When we look at the reflectivity on that, it likewise shows again, on the backside, sort of where that would hook around. So it would line up with the reflectivity. Several things we're watching now, guys, for folks that are at home. Let me zoom. I'm going to go back to the home view and then I'll zoom back into this mess and cluster of storms around Metro Louisville, pointing out that, yes, there are additional storms around. These are outside of the viewing area, and the ones to the north are weakening just a bit. So the ones that are sort of most potent are the ones that are approaching the greatest population. That's across southern Indiana and down into Louisville. So for folks that are in the tornado warning, which would include a good chunk of Harrison County, including Corydon, Crandall, Floyd County, Lanesville, just south of New Albany, but including Shively and PRP, you should be in your tornado safe place. You need to get to the lowest level. We can see we have great rotation even through the reflectivity showing up right there. And we also have a pocket showing up right there. All right. So those are the two areas of rotation. We still have heavy lightning in all of the storms. Wherever you see rain, there's lightning on a day like today. And we still also have gusty winds showing up with many of these. But the strongest pockets of wind would be right there and right there. Now let's zoom into each of those. Brian, I see you already have one, so let's go look at the one in Jefferson County. Yep. This continues to strengthen.
Exactly. It's right there at the point of 264. Crumbs Lane. I was looking at the camera. I'll check the feed in just a second. I think the feed came back, but it's very much in that little bend there. Of course, you guys know in the Georgia Powers. Let me try to see if we can get a signal to it. It did knock it down for a while. Looks like it's still down. The wind got quite strong there. I don't have any official gust yet. Let me check actually real quick at Ollie to make sure, because that wind gust is awful close to the airport. Not seeing anything Yeah, don't see anything there right now. So that's a separate cell. Right now, it looks more like a downburst scenario that has happened there in the western side of Jefferson County. And that's just going to come with just a very heavy rainfall rate. Again, you got a lot of heat that's built up, a lot of humidity in the western side of Louisville. We'll watch this because it is certainly showing the strong wind gusts. Let me see if I can get some speeds on this. Hold on one second. This is going to be just west there, 264. Doesn't look overly severe. I would say about 40 to 50 knots. So that's pretty typical of like a downburst wind that maybe accompanies an area. But it's the past couple of scans on that I've been noticing right there into Shively. That's what really shows it. You almost see where it begins to hit the ground. And downburst wind is basically just a big bucket of winds. The best way I could describe it, just like you would think of in rainfall, but a big bucket of wind that drops straight down out of the cloud and can produce that damage. In some cases, in Louisville especially, we end up with more of an issue of wind damage in this kind of scenario than we do even tornadoes around here. So this is heading right into Shively. I would say very close to Churchill Downs, University of Louisville, and again heading right toward the airport. Let me show you the camera. This is going to be from Ali International right now, and I don't see anything outstanding here at the moment, but it's looking toward, that's the big board. You guys recognize that at Churchill Downs. So it's looking in the general vicinity of where if there is a downburst wind, it's likely to be in that area. So just kind of a heads up, even though we have the tornado warning that is out for certainly that cell, that second one that we're watching, it's approaching the metro from the northwest. That's the one we're watching that really triggered the tornado warning. But this one is also including a severe thunderstorm warning for damage and winds. It could still develop out of the cell as it moves to the south and east, Kevin.
All right, all eyes on Metro Louisville as we've got two storms, one over us, one approaching. The one approaching with the tornado warning that's now moving across parts of Harrison County. You see the storm trackers out and about. Our SkyTrack cameras are up. We've got 10 of those strategically placed. Let's take a close view of the storm tracker, just show you what's happening. If you're on the roads, this is what it looks like. Again, it's raining heavily downtown and all across Jefferson County at this point. The storm tracker is making its way right up Interstate 64. Flashers are on with the cars, heavy rain. There's the Muhammad Ali Center. So we're coming as you work your way toward the downtown area. The river is on your left-hand side there. You've got all the downtown buildings to the right. Heavy rain falling. Gusty winds, but nothing too abnormal. That is, again, what we've been talking about. The damage reports have been hard to come by. We haven't seen many of those, even in southern Indiana, where we've tracked these storms. You can see the KFC Yum Center. Again, traffic is slowed in Metro Louisville because of the heavy rain that's falling and the gusty winds. We're tracking the storms moving in. One is on top of us now with the heaviest of the wind, as Brian pointed out, with this storm moving right over Shively. That's one zone. The next zone continues to tighten up. That one's moving across northern Harrison County. That one's approaching Crandall just north of Corydon. We can show you what that looks like on our SkyTrack camera. Brian, if you wouldn't mind switching us to the shot looking to the north from Corydon as we look at the SkyTrack network. Again, we're switching the cameras around so you can see what those look like. And then if you take a closer view of what some of those SkyTrack images look like, you can get a better idea of what's happening. North, look at the wind blowing right there in Corydon, the base of that storm overhead. Lots of lightning, lots of wind shear kicking up with these storms. And as we scan, you're going to notice the base of those storms a little jagged. You can see the wind and the energy, not just from the trees, but from the base of the clouds.
Yeah, and that's where we call this the rain-free base we're looking at here. This is always a sign that it's hard to tell from this camera vantage point, but if you were to be standing in there, you would likely see the entire cloud itself doing a rotating type of setup, almost like the movie you would think of in Independence Day when the ship kind of rotates. But it's a very broad rotation, and the Weather Service is caution here. This one is likely if there's going to be any type of funnel cloud that could develop out of this into areas of Harrison County, especially
look at that wind.
Exactly. It will likely be rain wrapped, so it may be difficult to see, but I'll keep an eye on there. It's certainly the wind. Now notice the tree. It's blowing. It looks like a little more toward the wind flow itself. It's a little bit more of an inward flow. So it's certainly trying to pull in like a vacuum cleaner would do, basically try to pull in some very warm air right into the storm. So the storm is feeding on that area there of Harrison County. And you can see the flags there. It's certainly like at the bottom. You can see them blowing in the direction of the storm. So the storm is taking in the air. That inflow is a good sign. The storm is quite strong and getting stronger, actually, as it's moving across areas of Corydon at the moment in northern Harrison County. And we'll track it as it moves toward Lanesville. I think Lanesville is next in line. line if this were to hold together. But the rotation is not easy to pick out because it is so broad, but it's one of those that can easily drop a tornado briefly as it moves across there of Harrison County. You can see that little bit of an inflow. When you're looking down the camera, the wind flow, again, is kind of blowing in this direction, flowing into it. There's the adjusted tornado warning. They're going to track that. Looks like they're going to go with that right into Louisville. So now Louisville, the air raid sirens will be going off in Louisville now because we now have the tornado warning that goes all the way to the Greenbelt, Kevin, and the Georgia Powers.
All right. So again, the new tornado warning is an extension of the tornado warning that we have. Winds will be picking up. We see them now in parts of Harrison County from our SkyTrack camera. You'll notice on the radar view 2 separate storms, one over top of us with gusty winds in Shively, and then the other one with the tornado warning that's coming out of Harrison County that will be extending off to the south and east. Again, the new tornado warning will go until 6:45. So we're going to be with you through that time. 6:45 it is. I'm going to ask our reporters that are in the studio if you can make some phone calls, help us out with some information just to see what's happening here in Metro Louisville. I know the storm tracker is on the road, but we're going to stay with nonstop weather coverage to get you through this latest tornado warning that's been issued. It's moving to the southeast at about 40 miles an hour, and as this storm presses off to the south and southeast, it will have the capability of producing a tornado. At this point, nothing on the ground that we know of. Now, we would know most cases because it's moving through a fairly populated zone at this point. I'm going to go back to the radar view. We'll zoom out to our home view. Really, the whole show is centered on southern Indiana and Metro Louisville. That's what's moving in. We also have severe thunderstorm warnings for a good chunk of Jefferson County, Indiana, parts of Trimble and Carroll counties in Indiana. Those storms, likewise, severe gusty winds, the potential for some smaller hail with those storms. The main severe storm that is really worth our concentration happens to be the one that's moving right into northern parts of Jefferson County and western parts of Jefferson County. Let me show you. We can hear on the roof some rain falling, what could be some hail. Can sort of differentiate the sounds. Again, this is moving right on top of us downtown. So this is very heavy rain right along I-65. Let me show you on the radar the velocities. You're going to notice 2 distinct zones. There's one that's passing by Shively right along the Watterson, and we also have the couplet of the tornado warning back across northern parts of Harrison County in Indiana. And that's where we have the greatest potential for that tornado. I'm going to start by looking closer at what's moving into Jefferson County. This pocket of wind moving right over Wilder Park will continue moving near the airport. So it's going to move off to the east-southeast, crosses over Interstate 65 within a matter of just minutes. All right. So that's one pocket of wind that we're watching in Metro Louisville. That, along with everybody else, seeing some very heavy rain and the possibility of some small hail. And I hear Brian, go ahead.
It's marble-sized hail, and it's actually pouring hail outside the station right now.
David, do you mind maybe looking outside in the weather garden? Let's get set up and talk about some of the weather that's happening here. All right, and you can see the tower cam looking down in the parking lot. So we do have some small hail that's falling in downtown Louisville. And again, when we look at what's going on, we've got pockets of wind. There's the one moving over Wilder Park. Thanks, Brandon. And then another one that is moving across parts of Harrison County. And that's really the one that is the larger of the two in terms of the wind maker. So I'm going to zoom back into that. So again, focused on the wind. You see other severe thunderstorm warnings coming out to the north, sort of being trimmed back. That's where we previously had a tornado warning, but the only tornado warning now includes the city. And that's because of what we've been talking about. As this storm moves across Harrison County, it has shown signs of rotation. Some very strong wind approaching Lanesville and Corydon. We showed you that. See where this blue showing up? That's strong wind all the way from Georgetown down toward Corydon. That's where we have the greatest rotation just south of Lanesville. That's going to be south of Indiana 62. That's going to be moving into southern Floyd County and western Jefferson County at this point. Back to our home view, and we'll put on the reflectivity. Brian, what do you have?
Okay, a couple of things. Been watching that cell that's been moving through Jefferson County. Weather Service issuing a statement. It's the new warnings coming out for the Louisville Metro for the strong wind signature. I'm not sure if they're referring to a severe thunderstorm warning, a tornado warning. Okay, they're going to cancel the tornado warning that is out, and they're going to keep it with severe thunderstorm warning. Yeah, it looks like as it moves through. One thing I did note, the Storm Prediction Center issued a statement. They did highlight this area for the potential for strong tornadoes that could be developing as we head to the next couple of hours, and that's right in the heart of wave country there. So that's how we're going to see how these cells kind of evolve and merge. They lost that signature for a while, but it looks like they're trying to get that signature back again, developing. Perhaps even that isolated tornado threat right now. Looks like, though, Kevin, we will be out of a tornado warning setup in all of our counties, correct? I believe that's right.
Yes.
And now we're seeing all the hail reports come in from the Highlands and Germantown. Basically what I saw outside, but it was roughly about, I would say, pea to marble size, but it was come down quite a bit. And obviously, we can hear on the roof of the station, too.
All right. And there's the weather garden. You can see, if you look, what we're looking for is things that bounce.
It's laying in the gravel, the mulch there.
Yeah. Exactly. You can see it in the gravel and in the back part of that, where you can see those little white pieces of ice. I mean, that is the hail that fell. Could have been up to marble size hail. So I know Brandon Spencer was on his way out there to take a look. Brian has seen it. I heard it on the roof, so we knew it was happening, and there it is. So a number of reports coming in. Back to the radar we go. Storm tracker is on the roads. We've seen traffic slowed. One round of heavy rain through, another one on the way. Severe thunderstorm warnings continue across Metro Louisville. Until those expire, we're going to stay with you. So we'll wipe out nightly news and stay with you to get you through this weather scenario. And then hopefully there's a little time in there. We'll get you back to your evening programming, and then if we have to jump back on this evening. The good news is what we had in terms of severe weather back to the south and west has expired. What we're looking at back off to the north is not all that strong. So the strongest of the storms happens to be moving through Louisville as we speak with a severe thunderstorm warning. They're issuing a new severe thunderstorm warning for Clark, Harrison, and Floyd. That will go until 7 o'clock. So it's
just going to replace the whole thing.
Sort of cleaning it all up.
Yeah.
And again, radar indicated 60-mile-per-hour winds. Notice they took the tornado possible tag off. So we sort of saw this merger of these storms. It flattened out as opposed to becoming where it could rotate anymore. So it's really a heavy rain, lightning, and wind maker. Also with some of that hail that could go up to golf ball size hail, but most of it will be smaller than that, probably on the order of pea to marble size. So that's what we've already seen with the one storm moving through. The next one will do the same as that pushes through. It's located now across northern Harrison County and almost all of Floyd County, and that will be sliding off to the south and east. It's moving at about 30 to 35 miles an hour. We'll be moving right into Metro Louisville once again. So that's another area that we are closely paying attention.
Looks like quite the hail core showing up there just southeast of Georgetown into Indiana.
Yeah,
let's scope that one.
Why don't you take it and show us what you're watching?
All right, let me show you the view. Let me get rid of the radar function of it. There we go. This is going to take a second to get updated, so you got to keep in mind. Let me kind of loop this in the past hour and see if we can get an idea of how it trended. But this is when the cell that initially triggered the tornado warning was moving across Harrison County. It looks like the core of this now is starting to go back up, and this is probably producing hailstones that could be larger than certainly quarter size. It moves through. There's a look at it. And it's very strong signature. It just crossed I-64 at the moment, and it's now heading just south of there into Floyd County, just west of New Albany. If this holds together, I think it's going to move into an area very close to Sabe, not far from the casino, Elizabeth, Indiana area. If it tracks to south and east, don't know yet any confirmation on size. I'm still waiting. This is an area, it's another spot we don't get many reports from once it gets to the other side of 64 there. So if you know of anyone that's seen hail or are able to send it on the Wave Weather app, please do so when safely able to do so, and certainly pictures and video. You can send that on the app, by the way. Jessica is monitoring that. These reports help. Yes, we can show them on TV and show what everyone experienced, but they're a big help for everyone in advance of the storm. They give everyone that's going to be experiencing it next an idea of what they can expect when it moves over their neighborhoods. That's why your photos are also, you're helping everyone else out as well as us, so we appreciate that. But that looks to be the strongest of the cell. The one in Jefferson County, it's got small hail with it, Kevin, but it looks like this one here is starting to steal away from the lead cell, looks like.
Yeah, and it has been that case through the day. I mean, we've seen this one really steal the show, and it will continue to probably do so as heavy rain and lightning move through. But again, the rotation, which was there, and now the hail and the core of that hail is something we're watching. I'll ask that the storm tracker be on standby around New Albany, or perhaps even down toward, as you work your way toward Shively. So anywhere between New Albany and Shively on the Watterson and Georgia Powers, that would be the place to really watch for some of that hail moving in. So let's get the storm tracker in that place. We'll see it right as it starts to move in. I'm going to go and zoom into this general area. It's one severe thunderstorm warning that's now been sort of condensed all together. Really two storms, but one warning. So that makes it a little easier to communicate. You'll notice that hail zone that Brian mentioned. It's now just south of Interstate 64. It's going to move very close, probably toward the casino as you work your way toward Riverport and pushing on into not far from Portland, down toward Chickasaw Park, down to Shively. So that's going to be the area that experiences probably some of this hail. Now, starting to still see on the reflectivity a little bit what could be rotation. So let's take a view of that, and we'll just constantly do this. Mainly wind, less, it's more broad, so it's less tighter rotation, but certainly some high winds moving through Lanesville, the Corydon area, going to be pushing into southern Floyd County, western Jefferson County with this as we move through the next 15 to 30 minutes. That's the area that's most at risk for the damaging wind, and the pockets of 60+ mile-per-hour winds that would be possible. We've talked about it today. Our tornado warning has expired, so even though it says 12 minutes, they consolidated all the warnings. We've got 27 minutes left. We're still not out of the woods. The tornado watch goes until 11 o'clock tonight. Areas south of this line will be most at risk through the evening hours. If you get under a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm warning that has the potential, then you need to be in your lowest level. It's the safe place, away from windows. Again, that's where you need to be. If it's a basement, that's great. If it's ground level, that's okay. It just needs to be the lowest level, away from windows. A couple of severe thunderstorm warnings that we have on the map. Outside of that, the atmosphere is primed. Our dew points are in the upper 70s, upper 60s. Temperatures are rain cooled now in Louisville at 74. Most areas have been in the mid to upper 80s today. Our latest wind gust out of Louisville International.
It's the hail. The hail triggered it. Quarter size inch hail there at Ali International. It triggered that special alert in the chat just now. So that was right there at that point, as well as that wind gusts that are 40.
Yeah, so when we get sort of anomalies, the new data comes in immediately, and that's what we saw with that hail report, allowing us to see the wind as well, now at 40 miles an hour. These are the flags over in New Albany. You can see what that's looking like. Again, the radar showing lots of lightning with these storms as they pass in, 70-mile-per-hour winds possible. Jessica's been keeping an eye on a lot of the damage reports that you've been sending in, communicating with our emergency managers as well. Jessica, what information do you have?
I wanted to show this picture. If we can pull up Max 3, pretty large hail in Madison, Indiana from Paul G. And this was submitted to our app. It looks like probably close to golf ball size hail. We've seen getting a lot of photos just now from that storm that's moving through Jefferson County in Indiana and starting to cross over the river. So that's the storm in particular. We've been getting lots of photos from folks so far, and going to continue to sift through those and see what other kinds of damage reports we're getting, Kevin.
Okay. Again,
these wind fields are really ramped up, by the way, guys, into Harrison County here.
And this is the low-level jet that's increasing. So this is, again, we've talked about it for days now. We were going to see the individual cells develop in the afternoon that would pose the tornado threat, the hail threat, and then what we said was as the winds increased, that would still promote the development of some of these possible tornadoes. That's why the Storm Prediction Center has still outlined a chunk of Kentucky and our area saying, hey, don't let your guard down. We're just now ramping up these winds. We're going to increase the veering and the shear, and that could promote the development of additional tornadoes down the line. Brian?
Yeah, this is right now, this looks to be more of a straight line wind. Let me show you what it looks like. You can see a lot of different colors here. We got the reds and the greens. Basically, the radar beam is right here where my hand is at Fort Knox. The wind field that is blowing toward the radar right now is showing up in green. The wind blowing away is showing up in a bright red. Now, it's the leading edge we're watching here as it moves right across Lanesville. A lot of lightning is also showing up in that area of Lanesville. Also, a good indicator the storm is still quite intense as it moves in. If this becomes more of a solid wave, it's more of a straight line wind. But here's the thing. When you end up taking a wind field or a part of a storm and you accelerate it faster than the surrounding spots, you can get a little bit of a spin that can develop. So we need to watch that. There's no sign of it right now, but the environment is certainly right for that idea. Current thinking on this is more of a straight line wind type of scenario. But Lanesville is getting the brunt of that. Right now, we've got our camera set up in New Albany. You see the wind is blowing toward the camera lens to the side. That's a strong indicator of a northwest wind that is blowing right now into downtown New Albany. So you guys are in the certainly dominant outflow scenario where that green was showing up. That's what we're watching as it moves into Jefferson, Kevin.
All right. They've just sort of revised the warning for Louisville, now upping it to 2-inch hail possible. So this data will be changed. It's now 2-inch hail possible and 70-mile-per-hour winds. So those are sort of the statistics coming in from the new update on the warning that is in place until 7 o'clock for Metro Louisville and all of Floyd County, a good chunk of Harrison County. 2 storms with that, all moving across the same area, producing some very heavy rain. I want to go to our reports. Let's talk about some of the hail reports that have been coming in. When we talk about hail, we can get them in a number of ways. These are from our MPING reports. You can see some areas have had half-dollar size hail, some quarter-size hail. So when we're looking at these dots, you can see some larger than others. Northern Harrison County over into Floyd County, it looks about like half-dollar size hail. Some areas, there's dime size hail, pea size hail in Jefferson County. These are real-time reports coming in from MPING. That's viewer submitted reports. We appreciate those. We also have local storm reports from the National Weather Service across the area, hail reports and some wind damage across parts of Floyd County and into Jefferson County. Likewise, that's what we've seen back across a chunk of Indiana with these storms. So mainly they're hail making storms with some wind.
And the storm tracker's got hail apparently right now.
All right, let's show that. We'll take the storm tracker and just point out that as we've asked it to set up closer to
He's in the Portland area, actually, right now on the Kentucky side. You can but the hail core's heading right to him, though, it looks like, on the western side there, Portland.
All right.
There's an exit there.
There's a crash.
Yeah.
This is, again, I mean, that's part of what you see as these storms move in with blinding rain. You've got to take it slow. If you don't have to be on the roads, don't. We're gathering weather information from the storm tracker. We can see a lot of data coming in from where it's at, with the environment that it's in and where it will push toward. Again, as that hail core moves closer to it, we can track its location in relation to the radar. So let's go back to that. Let me just go back out of our storm reports and we'll check back in, because it looks like as that storm tracker makes its way toward Portland, that's the hail zone that we should be tracking. So I'm going to zoom into that as we go in a little tighter. Again, one storm departing, southern parts of Jefferson County, heavy rain. That takes you down toward Glen Mary. That pushes you south of J-Town. You've got heavy rain and lightning. It's all moving south of the zoo. Here comes another round of heavy rain, lightning, and hail. This one's going to move in. It's passing Lanesville. It's south of 64. This is the zone. Remember, it takes the radar a few minutes to update. So while we're looking at this right now in real time, it's probably about right here. And so you're going to see as the scan comes around about every 5th time, it's going to move this echo down a little closer. It's going to move across the river in between, Portland and Shively, it looks like. Let's put it into motion. In fact, Brian has it in motion on his. Brian, walk us through that hail. It looks like Shively, from Shawnee to Shively would be the zone.
Yeah, and that's exactly. The storm tracker was right in this area. They're in the route. They're trying to making sure they're safe. They're heading back south on 264, heading towards Shively. The hail core was pretty intense. The most intense part was right there and around Georgetown. That's when it first got our attention, as it was moving across Floyd County. Notice the past couple scans of the hail core. It's going to get another update. It has kind of become a little more elongated instead of concentrate right there in Floyd. It's trying to build a little more into the Shively portion. But if this holds together, as it likely will, this is going to be moving right over Riverside Gardens area, Iroquois Park. It's heading your area right along Dixie Highway. There's Crumbs Lane. This is where the area that had the high wind earlier around Crumbs Lane took place. That is going to be heading right along Dixie Highway, the Greenbelt, and the Parkwood area. And again, Iroquois Park is right in the path of that. So we don't have a confirmation yet on the hail size on this. I'm waiting to see if there's anything that comes out with that. But if you are able to do so without dealing with a lot of the heavy rain and get that car into the garage, pretty good idea. Just considering how large this has been so far. So
exactly. And I'll ask the storm tracker if you can find a canopy, an overpass, a bank, something that's closed. You might pull pull under that. Maybe it's an overpass. We want to protect the equipment on top of the storm tracker. We've got a lot of equipment. So let's just find a safe place to get the storm tracker underneath. We can still show the imagery if that hail moves through parts of western Jefferson County. So we'll check back in with the storm tracker coming up. All right. We want to be in the path of it, but we don't want to be in danger's way. And we certainly don't want to risk Corey or anybody else on board, nor the equipment. So let's take a look at the radar. You can see, again, the heavy rain. This is the hail showing up in terms of reflectivity. Remember, if you've been watching through the afternoon, we've gone through many science and radar reading lessons. It's that radar beam that goes out, runs into something a little more dense. Sometimes it can be rain, lots of rain, snow, and in this case, ice. And that's when it comes back as a little more of a brighter reflectivity color on the radar, and consequently we can pick out where we see some of the hail. The radar also gives us an indicator of our scopes, and we can see that hail scope. And as we look at what's moving through Floyd County at this point, you can see that is where we would have the greatest potential. So it's now south of 64. That again is going to move over mainly just north of Shively.
And there's a hail core going up in Okolona just now, starting to go up on the sensor. So I'm not sure if you're able to reach down there or not.
Yeah, let me see
on your scan, but it's just now starting to go up, gaining over about 48,000 feet.
Okay, so again, lots of impulses as these storms develop. Let me go back to the pan. There we go. And then let me see if I can grab the scope, and then we'll just move that down. So when we're in the hail scope, you can see we were looking here in Floyd County. We looked over toward Shively, and then again over toward Okolona, where Brian mentioned we saw that part of the storm. Again, two different storms, as we pointed out, same warning, so it sort of makes it easy to talk about, but that one's just now starting to blossom as well. So at least pea to marble size hail probably with that storm as it moves in as well. So we're starting to see these storms move through, some of them packing a punch with hail, others not so much. The home view will show what is happening across the entire region. Really, the bulk of the action is right in Jefferson County. That's the severe thunderstorm warning that is in place until 7 o'clock, so another 47 minutes on that warning as this area of storms passes by. Some people might be like, well, why are you on the air with a severe thunderstorm warning? Well, the idea is today is one of those days where even severe thunderstorm warnings have the potential to immediately go into tornado-warned storms because of the shear we have. So we're going to walk you through this through Jefferson County, and then provided there are no additional tornado warnings at 7 o'clock, we'll be able to get you back to programming, but we'll be here to be able to sort of watch these storms and see how they develop through the evening hours.
The cell in Okolona and Newburgh is now the taller one of the two.
So again, as Brian's sort of explaining the radar, we've been talking all for the past hour really about these two storms, this one and this one. They've merged somewhat together, but there's still a distinct difference in them. And as they've been pushing through, it's sort of been a cat and mouse game, as Brian explained, of which one had the greater strength, which one had the greatest hail potential, the greatest rotation, the greatest wind speeds. Well, what we're seeing now is the taller, and the tallness of a storm gives us an indicator of how strong it is. The taller the storm, the better the ability for that hail formation and production to occur. And we're seeing that. New warning coming out will extend that warning into parts of Spencer County, clips extreme southern and southwestern parts of Shelby County, and northern parts and northeastern parts of Bullitt County. So let's just go to that. We'll point out that this now includes parts of, and the other one was Bullitt, Clark, Floyd, and Jefferson. The extension of that will continue moving that, and it's until 7:15. So parts of Washington, Mount Washington, over into far western parts of Spencer County, comes right up to Taylorsville. So that is the extenuation of that warning moving through. For the same reason, those two storms that we're tracking. Now let's zoom into both of those. Brian was looking at the tops of those storms to see how high they were. Gives us an indication of their strength. Again, we've noted that across the extreme southeastern part of Jefferson County, we have a lot of heavy rain and wind. We also, not far from Okolona, have seen that hail potential. So when we look at that on our scopes, you're going to notice close to Moore High School, the fact that we do have that potential for some hail. And that's going to be moving over There it is, very much right over Moore High School and McNeely Lake. So that's an area that we're watching. You can see the quarter-size hail indicated by radar.
Very strong winds here, Kevin, by the way. Now we're looking at the hail, but I'm watching the wind fields as well. Valley Station and the Snyder Freeway area, the wind has really gone up. You see that little pocket right there. The wind field's really just ramped up in the past couple scans as it's crossing into Jefferson County. This is overall, though, when you look at the signature, this is a rotating signature that we're looking at. It's broad, but it is a rotating thunderstorm that's quite intense. But again, we'll keep an eye on the wind fields. Just want to mention that to you, but they are starting to go up there in southwest Jefferson County.
Yeah, and you can see our wind gust in Louisville gone from 40 back down to 35. That's at just 1 point. That's at the airport. Again, that will be ticking up as those winds approach. So we were looking at the one storm potential hail down toward McNeely Lake. Let me pan over. I'm going to show you the next zone that we're watching, and then we'll get into the wind part too. This is where we see some of that hail just south of GE and Appliance Park, Moore High School, McNeely Lake, that general area. And then, of course, as we look across western Jefferson County from Shawnee down to Shively, this zone with some heavy wind, you can't really pick out any of the purples on the map here. That's why Brian said this is the storm that's sort of taking over. It's a little bit taller now. Severe thunderstorm warning. This one's coming out. Let's just take a look at where that one is for. A lot of warnings have been issued today. Most of them have been severe thunderstorm warnings. This one is going to be for Carroll and Owen counties. Again, 1-inch hail, 60-mile-an-hour winds. The weaker of the storms that we're tracking, nonetheless important, so folks in Carroll County be on guard for some strong winds. Back to Jefferson County, you can see from Shawnee to Shively, we said we would look at the hail scope to see if we had the potential for hail showing up. And again, perhaps more of a wind maker than a hail maker, but you can see right along Shively, and there you see hail falling downtown Louisville. It looks to be about pea to marble size hail. And that was that was right here at the station. So it's coming in from the weather garden.
And that's on the weaker side, really, of the storm.
Yeah, so it would just be, so that's going to be intensifying. Where is the storm tracker? And can we see anywhere close to Shively would be a place to note some of that larger hail, maybe over toward Wilder Park, Iroquois Park by this time. Some of the data gets delayed in what we're looking at. We'll check in with the storm tracker and see where it's located, if it's in a safe place to be able to show some of those images. Nonetheless, let's talk about the wind that Brian mentioned. So we go to the velocity. We just sort of looked at the hail. We showed you what it was like in the weather garden. And now you can see those pockets of wind indicated by the lighter blue colors on here. And you can see where it is on the scale, but note that that's where we have the pockets of wind, and that's near Shively down through PRP and Valley Station. Brian, we have several things we're watching. Hail, the potential for the rotation, and also those pockets of wind that we've already noted. Today, we've seen a little bit of everything, but very isolated in where it has occurred.
Exactly. And the thing that's a little bit of a challenge now with the storm in the metro like this is that we're getting to the point where it's right up against the radar beam. So while we can see the scans in a lot of detail, hail can also cause more of a contamination in some of the scans we're getting. So it's kind of blocking at times the beam. So it makes it a little more of a challenge. There is a backup radar, by the way, that's located a little closer to Mount Washington. Weather Service, we have access to that as well. Weather Service does. They're watching it to make sure they're keeping an eye on the wind fields from a different angle point. Now, look at that wind update. I don't know if you guys could see this on my scan right there on 31W. This is going to be in Valley Station and southern part of PRP, West Pages Lane, Waverly Hills. Certainly a big uptick there has taken place. Don't know yet if this is anything more significant or not that is able to reach the ground, but I do know at least the large hail signatures coming in. We're getting reports anyway now, quarter-size hail in general in this area now of Jefferson County. So that would match up large hail, strong wind gusts. This is a sign here of the wind likely coming down at a good force real close to the airport. I don't have an update on the speeds. Let me show you actually the camera. Let's just go there real quick. Let me show you. This is going to be at All International at the moment, looking toward that direction of the Jefferson Memorial Forest.
Yeah, you can see it when it shows up like that.
It looks like snow.
Yep.
But it's certainly very strong winds likely in that area. But the winds are so embedded in the heavy rain right now. This is going to be a bit of a challenge here because we're going to have to solely rely on the radar data that we're getting. And again, it's right up against the beam. So we got some challenges with that to get a more accurate picture. But we'll be watching that as it moves over Jefferson County. Just make sure you guys are ready for any strong winds, because if anything can be produced as far as anything on strong winds, whether it's downburst wind or a brief funnel that can form, it would be that relatively fast hitting. So, and it could catch you off guard. So make sure everyone's safe. Obviously, if you hear the hail outside, that's fully expected, and it's likely going to be hail in the same spots. So you're getting hail now, Okolona, Hy-Vee, Fern Creek. You're about to get it again, likely with the second one. Kevin, we're also going to be watching the rain totals. Let me see if I can punch this up real quick.
And while you're punching that up, speaking of rain, Floyd County and the fire departments over there reporting on State Road 64 and Oaks Road, some flash flooding with a vehicle stuck in some of the floodwaters there. So
radar estimates are over 4 inches right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's wild. So over 4 inches of rain, southern parts of Floyd County. We've got the pockets of wind and the hail up to a 1-inch hail. That's quarter-size hail moving across the fairgrounds right now. That's right where we have the airport cameras. So you'll notice from our SkyTrack camera that hail that we could see falling likely anywhere between 3/4 of an inch and 1 inch, which would be quarter size. So that's something that we continue to watch. Over near Hillview, we've also had 1-inch hail. So a number of areas now reporting that large hail. We're looking at the velocity here. Let me go back. I'm just going to lift this up so we have Jefferson County in view. So when we look at what's happening across southern Jefferson County, you can see the really different zones that we look at. Again, pockets of heavy wind passing by the Dixie Highway from PRP down to Valley Station. That is a very heavy wind maker right there. You start to get those dark blues and even blacks showing up. I don't know if that's an anomaly. We'll see it on the next scan. That could just be a quick burst of air right there along the Dixie.
It's about 2 scans now it's been holding there.
Okay, so that's important, and that's something to note. We also want to point out that on the scopes, our hail scope has been showing a number of areas seeing that potential. And we've been tracking that from Iroquois Park. So we've seen some downtown. We've got it right along the Watterson Expressway to Iroquois Park. And now I'm just scanning back over toward where we were in McNeely Lake. Not much there. Again, a little bit of data showing up, but I would advance that forward. So over towards St. Matthews, pushing down toward Okolona, all going to note the hail, while the strongest of the winds would be just south of that from PRP to Valley Station. Brian?
All right. Yeah, you're right. I'm also showing the camera here. Let me see if I can pull this up. It's hard to see because it is raining so hard at the moment. But this is a live look here at Ollie International. This is likely hail that is just coming down. The camera's going to take a second to update. I apologize. The signal obviously getting highly interrupted. This is what it looks like. Basically, you're getting a snowstorm is what it looks like there into areas near the airport.
Could we zoom in on top of that?
I got it zoomed in quite closely. It's just delayed right now.
I see. I got
so it'll take a second, but you'll be able to see where it is absolutely just pouring down out there at the moment. But a lot of the reports, you guys are sending messages like crazy. I'm sure Jessica's overloaded with them at the moment. Just go, you get where you got right now coming in.
There's a really good hail video. If we take Max 3, it's in Lanesville. So this looks like it was taken about 30 or so minutes ago from Jenna. You can see, just looks like very large hailstones. You can see it shredding the trees in the background. And that will certainly do damage to your car, damage to windows too. So that was a part of the same storm I think we're talking about right now that was moving through Lanesville a little while ago.
Wow. Yeah. And that's where we first noticed the uptick in that hail. So that's, again, large hail and a lot of it falling in Floyd County. That's over at Lanesville. We also have reports coming in out of Jefferson County from St. Matthews. We just mentioned that pea-size hail falling there. And that's where we said the hail would be advancing towards St. Matthews, over towards Seneca High School, GE. Strong winds from Iroquois Park to Okolona, the Jefferson Memorial Forest. So we've got the wind zone along, say, just for simplicity, the Gene Snyder, and the hail zone right along the Watterson at this point. Brian, anything new?
Not yet. The reports mainly just about hail coming in. We've got one, let's see, over 1 inch size hail, a little larger in quarters, coming down along the portions there of Dixie Highway. Same story around the airport, about a 1/2 inch hail. And that's been the big theme, but it's something else to note here, Kevin. Look how the line's reforming. again to the north. Areas that got hit. This is certainly much more of a training aspect here, and this is problematic on flooding if this can build more and head to the south. And this is a little off from what we had earlier indicate on some of the modeling too. It's a little further to the north. Look at the wind field. You can really see that boundary. If you look right there, you can see that wind that is pushed out from the storm past Fort Knox, past the radar beam that's heading to the south. We'll see what happens here when that gets out to the lead edge into Bullitt County and Mount Washington. You don't want that wind, these two to cross paths, and that could be a bit of a factor, some enhanced winds in that area as it passes through. But hopefully that's a good sign, Kevin, if it's bursting out that far, that we'll begin to see a pretty significant weakening trend in that cell into Jefferson County in the next hour. Then our attention resets and goes back up to the north again.
Yeah, exactly, because those storms just now firing on what some areas have been untouched in southern Indiana. Many of them still dealing with a lot of environmental shear that's just increasing. All right, we've got additional reports coming in thanks to you through the Wave Weather app. I want to show you those. This is what it looked like in parts of the viewing area. And again, this is in Cloverleaf neighborhood, and you can see the hail. Always see it when it hits those pools. It makes those splashes. Fairly small hail here from what it looks like. And again, you can see the trees whipping around, but the patio furniture staying intact. Wind and hail up to P to marble size hail, and that's from the Cloverleaf neighborhood. We appreciate everybody sending in their photos. Again, easy to do as long as it's safe to do. Let's take a look. As Brian pointed out, we're starting to see development to the north. The severe weather over us in downtown Louisville continues. We're going to zoom into this. This severe thunderstorm warning goes until 7 o'clock. Another 2 minutes on that with an extenuation farther to the south. Again, 70-mile-per-hour winds possible. We've noted that. I'm going to take the data off so we can just see the radar. And then let me swing it over just a bit, and then I'll be able to show you where we have those pockets of heavier wind and where they're moving toward. And then as we roll into that 7 o'clock hour, provided there are no new tornado warnings, we will get you back to programming. So let's look now, and we'll go into the velocity, looking for those pockets of heavier wind. And I'm going to have to zoom in just a little bit tighter on this for you. And we'll start over on the western side of Jefferson County and then work our way over. And then we'll focus on the hail. Brian's looking at the hail. Let me look at the wind. So let's just scan across Jefferson County. You can see we've eased the wind just a bit. We're not seeing those light blues that we had. That's good news. The winds are easing. Outflow boundary moving to the south. So again, looking just around, looking over toward Okolona. We've got some wind, but nothing
New
too
warning
crazy.
out there.
Say again?
New severe thunderstorm warning.
Yes.
Just came out.
And that one's coming out, and we can take a look at that. This is going to be for Bullitt, parts of Nelson, Jefferson, Harned. So those areas, again, downstream, that's the news.
Right on the outflow, looks like, is what they're warning for.
Yes, so we'd expect that to develop, and that's this zone here. Again, as that moves south, that's going to be pushing out of that storm in that forward motion. So that will be the zone, again, same area that we've been watching, potential for wind and hail. When we talked about the wind on this, it has weakened just a bit, still capable of those 60-mile-an-hour winds, but the pockets of wind have died down just a bit. All right, I said Brian would focus on the hail part of this storm across Jefferson County, so let's go over. We just diagnosed some of the wind, the new warning that came out, and now in terms of hail, where's the greatest threat, Brian?
Right now, the threat is easing a bit. I haven't seen as many reports of the larger size in the hailstones. Let me kind of do a loop of this. You can see when it really came in aggressively into Jefferson County. The one supercell producing the at least golf ball size hail, at least in some of the reports we're getting, but I haven't seen any pictures of it yet, but it was certainly up there. It was across out of Georgetown and headed into areas of western Jefferson County. Then they had the second cell that took lead over into Okolona and Highview, producing now pea-sized hail into Mount Washington and Fern Creek area, heading to the south. So the hail cores, not as impressive as they were earlier. So now it's mainly just focusing on whether or not these cells can rain themselves out and the winds overwhelm them. And we see a weakening right now. We're 43 is the last gust we had, and that's the highest that we've had today, all international. But you really see the issue here. Look at this radar loop. This is not rain you're looking at. This shows you the wind shear right along that boundary. You can really see the flow right into this. At the same time, the front is sinking down to the south, and it's right along that boundary. These storms are really blossoming here. This is a strong signal there for a heavy rain flash flooding scenario. So for those of you in Jefferson County, Indiana, Scott County, certainly Washington County, Indiana, just a heads up, you can get very much a heavy rain scenario, flash flooding, but one or two of these cells can produce some damaging winds, especially on that boundary if it can get organized enough. So you guys already had one round come through. You're getting hit again. This one's going to be a little bit longer and a little bit tougher to get rid of. It's not an isolated cell like the others were.
All right, the warning for southern Jefferson County continues until 7:30. We're tracking these storms as they push through the metro area. You see the flashing of that. That's the indicator that has been updated. I want to go back to the home view as the area of storms to the north continues. There are no warnings at this point with those storms, but that doesn't mean we would not see those continue to intensify. And as Brian has pointed out, moreoverly, produce the flooding threats that we would see across an area that's already been sort of socked with rain. And especially it's going to be true with some of the rains that have fallen to the south. We've had a number of hail reports coming out of Louisville International. Most of these have been on the order of quarter size or smaller, so 1-inch hail or smaller. Ping pong ball size hail was just reported out of.
You can see it scattered on the ground on the SkyTrack camera. It's kind of the signal is going in and out, but it kind of looks like snow kind of had covered it there in the last couple of images. So they're melting quick because the rain's easing back, but you should be able to see them. So
if we take the SkyTrack camera, you can see some of those. Brian has mentioned, you can see the larger ones kind of scattered out, but there are some of the others, and
they're melting fast.
Yeah, exactly. So it only goes to show you how big they were when they first fell. Jessica, what do you have?
If we want to take Max 3 again, this is a wild video of hail that literally looks like snow, and it's falling in Madison, Indiana. So that's pretty wild that we saw that from Christy Horde Rice.
Well, I think that's an old video.
There's Kevin. I'm so sorry.
There are no leaves on the trees there. So,
no. I must have downloaded the wrong video. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. So that was we didn't have a hailstorm quite like that today.
I miss snow, though, just FYI.
that made Brian
melt in my heart. Thank you, Jessica. Appreciate
that. We look at the SkyTrack camera. We also look at the storm tracker. We see a little sun shining. You hear us say,
there's a rainbow in that middle image there.
Yeah, so we see the rainbow on the SkyTrack camera. Again, the storm tracker showing some of those rays of sun coming from the fairground. This is on the backside of the system that's now pushing through with the severe thunderstorm warning that continues for the southern part of Jefferson County. I'm going to zoom back in. We'll make a couple of scans here. We're 3 minutes after 7. The warning for Jefferson County and the southern part goes until 7:30. Once the storms get past Jefferson County, we'll get you back to programming. But want to make sure for folks that are just tuning in who have experienced upwards of ping pong ball size hail coming out of Louisville. We had that report not long ago, and that was coming out of the Pleasure Ridge Park area. A number of folks reporting some issues with that hail. We heard it downtown. It was about the size of marbles downtown. We have water across the I-264, and this is eastbound. Several accidents westbound. So we noted a couple of accidents already from the storm tracker. Be careful if you have to be out. Notice the rain easing downtown and across western Jefferson County. The rain continues from Okolona to J-Town, Fern Creek, Glen Mary, right down Bardstown or Louisville Road as you work your way into Mount Washington. Hillview with heavy rain. The threat of hail is there, but it's fairly low. So when we look at the scopes again, in terms of hail, and then I'll look at some of your reports from the IMPING data. Let's Okolona, possibly some hail. We look back over, a little bit of small hail south of Fern Creek, but the greatest threat would be right across the Okolona area. When we look at some of the reports that you folks have sent in, we can check those, and we'll just look mainly at hail for now. This is the IMPING data. Again, noting that the greater hail, this is the trend that's important. So you can see the circles, dark blue, small dot, quarter size hail. We had that across Floyd County into western Jefferson County. Look at that one. That's the darker one. That's golf ball size hail coming in right along the Watterson Expressway over into the Shively area. And then we have reports of dime-size hail in a number of places. Pea-size hail, number of places, even working across Jefferson County. So you see the radar, and then you see the real-time hail reports that are being sent in. Very valuable information to see that the threat of hail is at least going down just a bit, as opposed to when it was back across Indiana and we had more quarter, $half size hail. Now it's transitioning at least to dime to pea-size hail. So some good news there. All right, let's take a look at some of the wind reports that we have. When we look at the IMPING data in terms of wind, we can see some of those wind reports that have come in. There won't be a whole lot of these. Obviously, we've had some trash cans blown around here or there, including Valley Station. That's nothing too crazy at this point. Let's go back. We want to look to see if we've had any flooding events. So we go back to our reports and we look at the flood events from IMPING. And we can see if we have any. There's one up there. This is, again, creeks rising not too far from the Linden area as you work your way up towards Springhurst. So that's one area. So a lot of those are real-time information that's coming in. We're able to show those and send those to you. Back to our reports. And just for one check, let's look at the MSD rain totals that we have across Louisville. We've picked up in the Weather Garden over an inch of rain, Shively an inch and a half of rain, Okolona 1.3, lower totals close to a quarter of an inch around Prospect. You can see the heaviest of rain fell across central and southern parts of Floyd County. So again, that's why as this next round moves in, flooding could be an issue. Brian, what do you have?
Still watching that wind flow there in southern areas of Jefferson County. That's where your strongest of winds are anywhere right now in wave country is right here all on this batch. You can see a little bit of an arc. There's two different cells we've been tracking. There's one little wind belt located there. There's one strong wind belt actually behind the actual outflow. So this is a strong wind gust. It's pretty persistent. This is a strong northwest wind that you will be feeling as it moves through your area, heading along I-65, Hillview, Jefferson Memorial Forest area. We don't have a lot of sensors because this is all mainly forest area that we're talking about. So we're not going to get a lot of data on this until it gets to about Shepherdsville. So heads up in Shepherdsville, strong wind gusts there, likely getting some strong wind gusts along Plum Creek area. Highway 44, Kings Church Road area, Mount Washington, probably some strong wind gusts. The lightning count's still up there, so there's still some strong wind gust potential out of these as they move to the south and east. They still are trying to merge together. They're not quite there yet, but they're trying to get there. And to the north, keep an eye on the storms here across central Indiana. Haven't seen anything yet. It's gotten to severe limits. Right now, it looks like that's mostly going to be a very heavy rain setup, but we still got a while to go because the front is going to take some time to get all the way through here, to at least I would say about midnight.
All right. Again, I'm just looking through some of the reports, too. Most of them have been small hail reports. We haven't had a whole lot of wind damage coming in. We continue with the severe thunderstorm warning for parts of Bullitt, Jefferson, Nelson, Shelby. That goes until 7:15. So we've got another 8 minutes or so, 7 minutes on that warning. Lots of lightning again with the storms that are developing to the north and the ones that are on top of us now. I'm going to take that lightning data off for now. We'll wipe that warning away as well just for now. I'm going to zoom back in. I want to point out a couple of things that are on the map. We see additional development going on across southern Indiana. That is the boundary that we've talked about with the winds coming in from the south, the front from the north. We're going to wind up seeing that squeeze out more rain. The potential for some stronger storms will still exist there. And likewise, with these storms moving across Kentucky, especially northern Kentucky, where things have not been touched today and it's still relatively untapped, very warm atmosphere, very juicy atmosphere because the dew points have been so high. We're going to wind up seeing these storms still continue to pack a punch as they move off to the east. These are all moving to the east and southeast at roughly about 25 to 35 miles an hour. Here in Louisville, we have the warning for the southern part of the county until 7:15. You can still see we're dealing with heavy rain. We've already picked up about 1.5 inches, 2 inches of rain in this general area from Highview all the way down to Hillview, pushing into Shepherdsville. So that's an area of concern in terms of rainfall totals and how much we're still seeing and what we may add to that. And in terms of wind, we haven't had a whole lot of reports of strong winds coming in with damage. The storm tracker is close to the airport now. You can see the strongest of the winds are south of there, but notice what it looks like. From the storm tracker's view, the skies have cleared in some places, and if we show it to you, you'll even notice in the distance, the base of the cloud, there's the rainbow showing up to the left-hand side of the screen. We've got that clearing sky to the right. Again, seeing some of the storms billowing up, but the bulk of the energy has been dissipated, at least with what's going on near the airport, as it moves farther to the south. And we'll have to await the next round of storms to move in. Those are situated across Indiana. So a little bit of drying time as we see improvement across the northern half of Jefferson County. The storms continue as we look at the radar off to the south, and that's where we're noting the stronger winds on the velocity. And I'm just going to zoom into that. Brian's been pointing out throughout the day that we've had pockets of heavy wind or strong wind, but at this point, the strongest right along I-65 as you push your way down into Bullitt County. So the transition is occurring as we move this out of Jefferson County, pushing on over into northern Bullitt County, just south of Mount Washington, moving through Pioneer Village. That's where we also have some of the heaviest of rain that's falling at this point. And again, it's moving, so we don't have a ton to worry about in terms of flooding. There could be some temporary issues with this, especially areas that picked up rain earlier today. You can see that's moving through where we have the severe thunderstorm warning. Brian?
All right. The heavy rain, I actually just heard from my mom. She said it's small hail there now that is taking place into to Bullitt County. So we got still those two cores that just do not want to give up, but they are not to the point really they're producing severe wind or hail at the moment, which is good. I haven't seen those gusts go up at all in a while. It's mainly just the tremendous amount of impact on traffic and heavy rain. In fact, let me show you the latest traffic map and get rid of all the features on it. You can see the impact it's having on I-65. Especially right there where the heaviest came through at the exit there to the Snyder Freeway, all the way down to about the Hillview area. So this is going to impact all the way, it already is, into Shepherdsville. This is going to impact Highway 44, Bardstown Road area, and all the way down to Lebanon Junction. So this is going to be just a tough travel spot for the next 30, 45 minutes if you're heading south there out of the Louisville area. But the rest of the area, again, the sun's coming out. Now we just have to reanalyze and set up and see how things are going to play out as we into this evening. No warnings along that line, Kevin, that's forming along the actual boundary itself, which is a good sign, but yet at the same time, we still got a lot of the area that is quite humid. I'm hoping timing is going to play on our side here to where we're going to be limited here only about another 90 minutes of heating. And that's already starting to ease downward. So that may play out and help us out on trying to, once again, create a little more of a cap. I think it's try to a natural cap as we head into this evening. So we'll see what happens. But until then, we got to get through this band of rain and wind. It's still going to be strong as it moves, as you see with the new warning now.
Well, there's several new warnings. We've got one popping to the north with that line.
Okay.
And then the one to the south. So as we extend this one down into central Kentucky. Let me go to it and we'll just show you that, and then I'll zoom into the ones to the north as well. This is the one that has just now been severe warned. Again, here we go again. Southern Indiana, your turn again. This is Jefferson, Scott, Trimble, Washington, all in southern Indiana, up to 1 inch hail possible. Winds not as strong with this, more of a flooding and somewhat of a wind threat as it moves through, but could produce some hail. This is sinking to the south slowly. So this is going to be a heavy rainmaker indeed. The possibility of some wind. This could be an issue that we see as this storm moves over an area that's been hit already once or twice today. When we look to the south, I'm going to recenter the radar back to our home view. Again, pointing out that at Louisville, our latest wind gust was 35 miles an hour. We continue to see now Nelson County, as well as western parts of Washington, northwest Marion, under this severe thunderstorm warning. Moving out of Jefferson County into Bullitt, the far western parts of Shelby, Spencer, and eventually those counties I mentioned, Nelson, Marion, and Washington, as it settles off to the south. This has the potential for some of those strong winds that we pointed out. It's moving off to the east. As it moves to the east, that warning expires at 8 o'clock. So that's what we'll be watching for 8 o'clock for expiration time on that warning. We're going to, at about 7:30, barring any tornado warnings that may be issued, we're going to get you back to programming. The bulk of this storm has passed the Louisville area. We're still watching it because as we zoom into Louisville, we've just had some hail over toward the McNeely Lake area that was upwards of marble size hail. So that's down in the southwest quadrant of, or southeast, excuse me, quadrant of Louisville. In Jefferson County, just south of J-Town toward Glen Mary, McNeely Lake. That's the zone where we have had just now a report of some marble-sized hail coming in. When we look at the scopes on that and look for the hail, you'll be able to see that pretty much in the zone right across the county line, and there it is. So that's what we've noted, upwards of quarter size possible. We've had reports of marble-sized hail coming in from that storm, southern Jefferson, northern Bullitt counties, as this sinks down toward Mount Washington. So you should be on standby for some hail moving in your direction. We'll go back to our home view. It's not all doom and gloom as we look at this. We've got a number of reports of quarter-size hail coming in out of Madison. We've mentioned hail in a number of places today, but we also have a lot of rainbows that you're sharing with us, and we appreciate that. That's always a safer time when the rain has ended and you can get outside and snap a view of the rainbows. Let's show you some of those from our app. Those of you who have been counting on the Wave Weather app today, you've been glued to the radar and our live stream, which we've been streaming all afternoon. A double rainbow here coming out of Georgetown, Indiana. Beautiful sight. You should be able to see that pot of gold on that one. You can see the double rainbow coming out of Floyd County there. So thank you for that. There's the whole arc. In fact, two of them as it spans the top of the tree line. Nice views from Georgetown, Indiana. When we look at what's happening across our area in terms of the storm tracker, it's been on the road all afternoon. We've seen a couple of accidents. We've seen some small hail. We've had reports of larger hail, but that's been fairly isolated. We've had egg-size hail, golf ball size hail, ping pong ball size hail. That's about as large as we've seen, Brian. Have you seen anything different?
No, that the ping pong size, I think it was the largest that I had seen at that point come through, and that was roughly around the PRP Valley Station area. A lot of reports around the Okolona area. Now, of course, we're watching the hail report still showing up into Bullitt County, but we're also keeping an eye on the wind as these cells are showing some wind potential as they're moving across Washington County into Scott County, Indiana. So this will be our next challenge we've got here, but at the moment, we don't have anything too significant showing up there, but this is a setup that bears watching. I think flash flooding is going to be some of the next alerts you're going to get. And you keep an eye on just the edges. This particular cell in Washington County, we need to watch. This is more of a straight line wind threat, but this one here, need to watch as it gets a little more in that environment as it moves over Salem. Could contain some strong winds, but this is still a very, very unique setup. This is one that I cannot recall happening this late in June, and certainly to have this kind of a wind field this far south is very unusual, but this has been a very weird end of spring, early summer anyway, so it kind of fits kind of the narrative as of late, but this is going to be a problem for at least, I would say, the next few hours as this kind of evolves through with a tremendous amount of tropical moisture just sitting on us right now. Get there today. Now that the heating is trying to ease back a bit, hopefully we'll try to reduce some of the intensity, but the coverage of rain, even though the intensity may ease back on the severe wind and hail threat, coming our way, the flash flooding threat will remain with us and will become an issue at times all the way through the night tonight.
All right. Again, the warnings that we have on the map are just severe thunderstorm, and I say that cautiously in terms of what can happen with those, because we can still have some major problems with severe thunderstorm warnings. We have had tornado warnings earlier today. That's what sparked us to go on the air not far from 4 o'clock this afternoon. We've been on since. We kept you on through the newscast here at Wave and nightly news because of the storms moving through Louisville, and even though we had the tornado warning earlier for Jefferson County, Floyd County, Harrison County. That has long expired, and now we've been just simply tracking this rain and wind and hail through the southern part of Jefferson County, and it's almost out of here. So again, at 7:30, back to programming we'll go. I'll just stay with us here as we track it out of southeast Jefferson County. Fern Creek still seeing some rain. The core of that smaller hail is moving along the county line, very close to 150. That's Bardstown Road, Louisville Road, however you want to look at it, depending on which direction you're going, right into Mount Washington. So that's where we have some of that marble size hail being reported. We also had hail reported of ping pong ball size hail out of Madison, Indiana. So up in Jefferson County, Indiana. Those are some of the larger hail reports that we've had. When we go back to our home view, let me just put on some of those hail reports that some of you have been sending in and many of the others from the Weather Service have been putting on. Again, I'll look first of all at the ones I just mentioned. Let's see if those pop up. Yep. So we've got the hail reports. Those were those ping pong ball size hail. Some hail moving through Louisville. Some of the larger hail that we saw was across portions of southern Indiana earlier in the day. We did have some more wind in that zone. That's where the tornado first came out, the tornado warning, and then that moved right down into the Louisville area. Our wind, while we reached 40 mile an hour at the airport, we haven't had a lot of wind damage reports. When we look at some of those other hail reports from what you sent in, let's see, here they are, the hail reports through Louisville. Let's zoom in a little closer because we can see what you've noted. Now, you can see across the area, southern Indiana had some of the larger hail. That's anywhere between $quarter to $half size hail in some of those reports. When we get down into Louisville, the general trend has been to fade that hail size down from dime size or even pea size. A lot of hail reports nonetheless. I mean, no one was sort of escaping the hail as those storms pushed through, all the way up from Springhurst, all the way down to PRP, Shively, and Valley Station, all seeing some of the hail. And in fact, some of the most concentrated parts of the hail were in the western half of Jefferson County. When we look at other reports that folks have sent in, we talk about the rain from MSD. You can see those totals that have been ticking up since this rain has moved through. Many places have picked up over an inch to an inch and a half of rain in Jefferson County, the exception being areas to the north and northeast. Places like Prospect and Middletown, far less, closer to a quarter of an inch. J-Town, a half of an inch. But you get to Shively, PRP, Valley Station, even over toward Audubon Park, picking up over an inch to an inch and a half of rainfall. Okolona, an inch and a half of rain. So those are some of those impressive rain totals that we've seen. When we go back to the radar view, again, we'll show you that the bulk of the rain is now moving out. The only people under the severe thunderstorm warning would be down toward Fern Creek and Glen Mary in Jefferson County. That's about to move out of the county. Again, it's 7:22. At 7:30, back to programming we go. Brian, what do you have?
Yeah, still that strong wind field. Again, it's a relatively broad rotation, but it's not wanting to give up yet. So for those of you in, say, right around High Grove, right at the base of the hill, as you drop down from Mount Washington, you still may be dealing with some of those strong wind gusts. So be careful traveling there if you have plans to travel toward Cockus Creek or into Bardstown. You use Bardstown Road, Louisville Road to get there. Kind of be aware of that. But that's the strongest wind field I see right now that's not wanting to give up. And it's also the reason why we still got the severe thunderstorm warning out. There's still time for this to try to develop a little more. If it can get ahead of the actual outflow here, it could try to get a little bit stronger. That's certainly possible, so I don't want to discount it completely. It is still possible we could still get additional warnings on that as it drops to the south and to the east, but something we'll be watching over the next hour. But they finally have merged together. So that's step one. In the most recent scan, you're really seeing that. So when they do merge together like that, you do tend to get a more enhanced wind at that moment when they merge, and then it begins to weaken. So we'll just see how that goes in the next 30 minutes or so. But just know that we're watching the reports carefully as it comes in, as they roll in there from Cockus Creek all the way to about Taylorsville Lake.
All right, let's make one more loop through, everybody. I want to go to some of your reports that we've seen. Obviously, we'll go through the radar and we'll check in with Jessica. We'll also check in on the storm tracker. Let's go to some of the images that you've sent from some of the larger hail that's been falling. Lots of hail and lots of rainbow pictures coming in from the Wave Weather app. We appreciate those, and thank you for participating in our app. We have the area's #1 weather app, and it's all because of people like you, so thank you. We spend a lot of time with it. You saw those images out of Thixton. This is Hillview, what appears to be some rain that's been falling, a little bit of pea-size hail coming in. There's ping pong ball size hail, and you'll notice just the comparison. So yes, we certainly had that in just a few places. This was in PRP, and you can see the different layers of that hail indicating the trips it's made up and down in the cloud. Rainbow pictures coming in through Highview as that storm moved through. In fact, not one, but two rainbows if you look closely. The storm tracker has been on the road all afternoon. We've seen some of that hail from its viewpoint. We've also seen a couple of accidents, and we're getting reports of more accidents coming in across Jefferson County. So take it easy if you have to go out this evening. Much of the rain is easing for now, but we've got more rain to the north with the severe warned storms across southern Indiana. Those are slowly sinking to the south and as they'll move off to the east. New warnings coming out This includes parts of the Carroll County area pushing over toward the I-75 corridor. Here in Louisville, our show is about to come to an end. The rain is moving out of southeastern parts of Jefferson County, pushing squarely down into Spencer County, southern Shelby, northern parts of Nelson County. And that's where we have some of that wind, as Brian mentioned, colliding together gives us a little bit of an enhancement. Let's show you the storm tracker, what it looks like outside. If you're making your way out this evening, just know we do have a few more storms that will be encroaching on the area through the evening. But for now, some sun is shining. The roads are wet because of that inch-plus rain we've had in much of Jefferson County. You can see that outside of the wet roads, the hail that has fallen has already melted across the region. Let's get a check from Jessica Dobson. She's been monitoring some of the reports coming in as well, some of the harder hit areas, and also some power outages that we may have had. Jessica, what's some of the wildest stuff you've seen?
If we can take Max 3, I'm sure this is hail damage now that we had in French Lick, Indiana from Barb, where her whole, looks like her back windshield was totally broken out. So not ideal to see that, but that's just the extent of the hail that we have seen so far today. And we do want to get a check of the power outages too. Wind hasn't been one of the higher reports that I've seen. A lot of it has been hail with hail photos, but it looks like a couple of our counties do have some power outages, and then even in the metro, we have some low percentages as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get a closer look at that. Customers, about 57, almost 5,800 customers in Jefferson County specifically without power. That's only about 1%. And then across parts of southern Indiana, we have several more that are without power. So we'll continue to monitor that, and hopefully crews will have some drier weather to work with in terms of getting folks back in store in terms of power.
All right. Again, Jefferson County now out of the severe thunderstorm warning. We'll continue to track this off to the south. Brian, final words from you, and we'll get our NASCAR fans back to the race.
Yeah, no, it's a big one. We've got it. We're going to be putting it up here shortly because we're about to join it. So just kind of heads up, though. Just watch out for additional alerts to come out this evening. Have your weather radio turned on. Download the Wave Weather app. Make sure notifications turned up loud. Still try to enjoy your evening. We don't want to ruin your evening entirely here, but make sure you have a way to get notified. That's important tonight because we still have a chance of getting some warnings all the way through midnight.
All right. We'll be here keeping an eye on it. Appreciate you staying with us through the storms as they've moved through Jefferson County. All warnings have ended for Jefferson County. The tornado watch continues for much of our viewing area until 11 o'clock tonight. We'll still be here watching these storms. We'll break in as necessary. But for now, let's get you back to NBC.